was actually a playoff team at 10-2. Clemson was number 1 at 11-1. Oklahoma was 11-1, and Wisconsin was 12-0. Had Auburn beaten Georgia in Mercedes-Benz Stadium, I think they go, and here's the reason why. Here was the run that Auburn was on.
I remember the December to remember.
Okay, it started even a little earlier than that, too. Here's the craziness. They beat Arkansas 52-20. They follow up by beating A&M. These are both road games, 42-27. They then come home to whoop Georgia 40-17. They get Louisiana Monroe, this Fun Belt team.
Then who did they end the season with?
Auburn and Alabama, they beat them by 12, 26-14, and then all they had to do was beat Georgia in that game.
And I should have said
probably getting in.
Yeah, November to remember, essentially, the way they went on the run. But not only did they get beat, they got,
in this case, they got pummeled by Georgia. Yeah. And the problem is, Florida, you just took that loss that ends up submarining you.
There's no question. And you get out blue-blooded by, in this case, Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State, Notre Dame. Like, it just Florida's in that club, but they're not at the top of the club like those four who all have at worst one loss.
And that's the problem they have. That's front office load.
I would agree with you. I know that's going to bother the Florida fan, but like the argument's lost when you lose against a bad LSU team at home. It's just any wiggle room or argument or position you're going to take, I think you end up losing it in most cases. All right, friends, that's going to do it for us. But because you're friends, we have more incredible football radio content on the way next.
Bravo!
The 680 The Fan Signing Day Spectacular is on the way next here on the radio. And you can watch it live on the 680 The Fan YouTube channel with Rusty. Rusty, come up here. Rusty Manziel from 24/7 Sports, our buddy Doug Conkle, and the great Cody Chaffins from Fox 5 with a guest list you're not going to want to miss, starting with Mike Norvell, Florida State head coach, around the corner. Georgia fans listen to Kirby, Tech fans Jeff Collins, South Carolina fans Shane Beamer, and some surprises along the way. Good? We'll look forward to that next. Thank you, Ips. Keith Ippolito. Good work. Thanks as well to Carlos and to you guys for spending your Wednesday with us. We're all back together tomorrow at 3. Have a great Wednesday evening. Good night now.
Okay, bye.
It's that time of year again, Atlanta. No, I'm not talking about the old fat man in a red suit. I'm talking about the big year-end sales at Maxi Price Chevrolet. Hudson Mason here to let you know when you find new roads at Maxi Price Chevrolet, you're going to get the gift of employee pricing on all 2020s and most 2021 vehicles. Save up to $12,000 on a new Silverado RST, $14,000 off on a new 2020 Suburban Premier, or save $7,000 on a new 2021 Traverse LS. Start shopping this holiday season at MaxiPrice.com.
Where's Loganville? It's time for some straight talk. Look, we all drop our phones. It happens. You fumble it, crack it, splash it. Well, Straight Talk Wireless now offers this new Platinum Unlimited plan that includes phone protection. Just $65 a month for unlimited talk, text, and data, plus 20 gigs of hotspot, 100 gigs of cloud storage, and more. All on the best network. Straight Talk Wireless, no contract, no compromise. See Mobile Protect terms and conditions at Assurion.com/Straight Talk. Limitations and exclusions apply.
Atlanta's a concrete jungle, and that concrete is highly susceptible to cracking and sinking or settling and causing all kinds of problems. The Georgia red clay on which our homes sit is highly susceptible to climate changes and can wash out or dry out and erode over time, causing voids. The soil is going to shift under the weight and then crack. If you've noticed cracked or sinking concrete in or anywhere around your home, it's time to have AquaGuard Foundation Solutions evaluate the issue. AquaGuard's patented poly-level concrete leveling injection process applies a lightweight, structural-grade, dual-part polyurethane foam designed to permanently level your concrete slab back to its original form. You can even drive on it after 30 minutes. Schedule your free, 100% free evaluation at aquaguard.net. That's aquaguard.net.
No best for being better. AquaGuard.
Cheer and
Solomon here with Solomon Brothers Jewelers to help you spread some holiday cheer this year with beautiful gifts and incredible jewelry deals. Your friends and neighbors have trusted our family-owned stores to find the perfect gift for decades. This year, give the gift of diamond stud earrings. We're offering our signature 1-carat total weight diamond studs for only $8.99 or a 4-carat total weight diamond tennis bracelet for just $29.95. Find the perfect gift at Solomon Brothers in Buckhead or Alpharetta, online at solomonbrothers.com.
Check out some of the top basketball talent in the nation at the Lemon Street Classic, presented by Superior Plumbing, December 19th, 21st, and 22nd at Marietta Middle and Marietta High School. COVID safety guidelines will be followed and masks are required. Download the Lemon Street Classic app for tickets or head to lemonstreetclassic.com for details.
Hi, this is Daniel Jape of Reliable Heating and Air. We are proud to sponsor Georgia's Heating Energy Assistance Program known as HEAT. HEAT raises money to help families during hard times to pay for their heating bills throughout Georgia. Good people experience hard times, and we are here to help. The last thing you want to have to do is choose between keeping your family warm in the wintertime and buying them groceries. Help Reliable support the Georgia HEAT program by visiting heatga.com and donating. Thank you.
I'm attorney Ken Nugent, and I'm here with legendary Georgia Bulldog quarterback and radio host Buck Ballou.
Ken and I are teaming up to give back to the brave men and women of our military. Ken's going to donate $500 to one member of the military every Bulldog football game this season.
If you're a member of the military in Atlanta, go to attorneykennugent.com to enter.
And somebody's going to win $500 every game.
One click.
That's it.
Ken Nugent, proud partner of the Georgia Bulldogs Sports Network.
The Fan is proud to be the high school football voice of the South, and we're bringing you the exclusive call of the GHSA State Finals, December 28th through the 30th.
As a man, there it is, caught, and it'll be collected in the end zone. Oh, my!
The biggest programs in Georgia battle it out for a state title, all presented by Georgia Farm Bureau, Academy Sports and Outdoors, the GHSA, and Atlanta's 28-year home for high school football in the South. The following is a special presentation of 680 The Fan.
I'll be attending the University of Georgia.
Congratulations. You're going to be a Panther.
I'm going to Michigan State University.
I'm committed to Clemson.
I'll be attending University of South Carolina.
Committed to the University of Tennessee.
I'm headed to LSU.
Going to University of North Carolina.
I'm going to Kennesaw State University.
I'll be attending Morehouse College.
Auburn University.
I'll be attending Georgia Tech.
It's a blessing. I mean, you putting together a class that's going to be unstoppable.
The biggest signing day coverage in the South is only here on The Fan. This is The Fan's coverage of National Signing Day.
Hello and welcome, 680 The Fan's National Signing Day Special. I'm Doug Conkle, the official visit crew. Rusty Mansell 24/7's with me with special guest Cody Chafins.
The bracket man, the bracket man.
Just riding along today.
No, man, you're going to be one in the driver's seat for too much longer. It's a weird year, you guys. It's 2020. There's a lot we can't do. Usually on signing day, we are with the kids, and we are at a location, and we meet a lot of them that day, and we talk to the coaches, and that's been a great event. Couldn't make that happen this year, obviously, because of the pandemic, but I kind of like the pivot we have going on, where we are now able to do a show in the evening, and we're going to talk to the college coaches who are able to actually discuss these players now because they've been signed and it's all legal.
Yeah, for so long, these coaches could not say anything in fear of their folks in their AD office
sanctions
getting mad about it. So, yeah, it's fun to hear them actually be able to talk about it. We do miss seeing the kids face-to-face because that's what makes this day so special, is watching the parents walk up there with their kid and take that picture as they sign to go play at the next level because they know all the work that's gone into it.
Yeah, and our vision always was for that event, kind of like the NFL draft. You hear your name called and you come up and you answer a couple questions, and it's a big league feel the kids won't get this year, but hopefully they're being treated well at their schools and by their families.
It's pretty cool. You look back, we had Jamari Salyer and
Emory Jones and all those guys making their decisions there, and all those guys are playing on the next level now. And that's the one thing I'll miss is seeing that, like Cody said, that moment. You see those families, the grandmothers, the people you don't get to see every week, to enjoy that moment, that one lifetime moment. I always tell these kids, look, if you want to do a commitment video, that's fine. But understand, one day your grandkids are going to see this, so how do you want to show them where you were? So maybe let's back it off a little bit and let's be a little more. But, this class 21 has been through so much, man, and what a great day for these kids to finally get to put pen to paper and make their dreams come true.
Yeah, I think, one of the things I always take away from those signing day events are, in my day-to-day life, I interact with normal-sized human beings. And then I stand next to a Jamari Salyer, and I'm like, my God, that is a moving mountain of a man right there. And I don't get that same amazement that I get this year. But you know what? Like we said, it's going to be a different kind of a show, and hopefully we can bring some people some things that are going to enjoy listening to. We have a few good, I'm not going to say good, to say great coaches joining us.
Sure.
Pretty soon we'll have Mike Norvell from FSU. He's going to join us to talk about his class. We got Shane Beamer, we got Jeff Collins, we got Kirby Smart, all lined up now for the next couple hours. So we'll talk with those guys about what they have going on. In the meanwhile, let's just kind of bat it around a little bit. And Rusty, were there any surprises today? There's usually a couple. Did anything kind of get to you that you weren't expecting?
I think Ole Miss finished really well. Lane Kiffin flipped some guys. And
I saw his Mary Flipmas tweets.
Yeah. He started out about Wednesday, and he just carried it over into this week. I think Lane Kiffin, the job we're in, he makes things entertaining. I mean, he gets on Twitter. He interacts with people. He'll retweet things. And so that's really cool on his end. Georgia, not so much dramatic ending. He lost one today. We'll talk about that a little more. Got a major target this afternoon committed. So, it's different years, different things. But you look at surprises. I'm not really shocked that Alabama's rolling. I mean, should that surprise you? But they did have a really good day today. But Alabama, man, you're talking about the rich keep getting richer. My goodness, the class they just put together. Ohio State, Clemson, Georgia, LSU. I mean, it's about today, and it kind of tells you what's going to happen down the line next couple of years.
Yeah, it's a great indicator of future success.
Yeah, and we talked a couple of years ago where this early signing day, and it was such a novelty, and it's really, everybody you can think of put pen to paper today, really, Rusty.
Yeah, there's some guys left. We talked about Jake Garcia from Grayson High School. He's a guy that, quarterback I'll see play Friday night against Norcross in the Final Four, so we'll see if he ends up at Miami where I think he's going to end up. But for the most part, the P5 and the higher level prospects of the state of Georgia are signed.
Speaking of surprises, I think Coach Mike Norvell might have had one or two today when he was putting his class together for the Florida State Seminoles. So we're going to welcome Coach Norvell to the show now in just a second. And Coach, thanks so much for being here with us today. We appreciate you joining us. I guess my first question for you, not a question, it's sort of a comment, is get George Wilson out of Virginia. But that was much started your day out in a really positive note.
No question. George brings great value and just a tremendous ceiling here with what he brings to this Florida State football family.
Coach, Rusty Mansell here of 24/7 Sports. I cover the state of Georgia, and I was going through your prospects and your commitment list this afternoon, and obviously very quickly you see size. Along that defensive front, you see guys that are long, length, can play multiple positions for you. How much going into this class did you know we got to make some changes here on our defensive front?
It was a top priority for us, and we knew that we needed to get more athletic. You mentioned the size. Really being able to find guys that not only can command the end position, which you talk about George, Patrick Payton, Byron Turner out of Louisiana, but then also, the versatility of guys like Shavry Jackson, who can play end, but also can kick down inside, as well as Josh Farmer here, local product. And you'll be able to get those five guys in. We think that it not only sets up for the immediate of those guys, you'll be able to come in and challenge to impact our team early, but also sets it up for the future. And really, guys that all have huge potential in front of them. And think that's going to be a key figure to this signing class as we look back in years to come.
Coach signed a young man out of Atlanta area, Bryson Estes, out of Eagles Landing Christian. Saw him play Friday night. the history of Florida State, when they have been very successful, they have done well in Georgia, particularly South Georgia, and able to get some of those prospects. Talk about how you plan to try to recruit that, and how important is the state of Georgia to your program.
I think it's critical, and we try to approach Georgia as an in-state, aspect. We have three coaches that are, we basically break it up. South Georgia in general, we have three coaches, spread across the southern part of the state. That we think it's a critical area for us to make sure that we're doing a great job in our evaluations. Obviously, building those relationships. Last year we were able to sign a young man, DJ Lundy, that came in.
Sure.
And they will started as a true freshman for us, and making a tremendous impact. We think that's gonna really pay dividends here in the long term. But we definitely have a tremendous respect for the football that's played in the state of Georgia. You'll be able to get a young man like Bryson Estes, who I think really checks all the boxes for us. His versatility of what he's able to do on the offensive line, he's extremely intelligent, and one of the strongest offensive linemen that's coming out in the country this year. And so definitely excited what he's going to bring.
One of the things about Bryson Estes, he comes from Eagles Landing Christian, which has won the state title the last 5 years. They finally got beat last week. But what does it mean? What difference is it when you bring in a player coach who comes from a winning program?
Well, I mean, they understand the commitment that it takes, and Coach Guest there does a tremendous job, and just building, having that mindset, building that culture, understanding the responsibility and the importance of the relationships, and developing that trust with your teammates. And that's something that's important to us right now. Coming out of our at the end of our first year, that's one of the things that we're really working hard to instill and been building upon that foundation of what it takes to be successful. And it's not just what you're doing on the field, on a Saturday, but all the things that are building up to that throughout your preparation, the off season, the summer workouts, fall camp, and then every practice that you get. You'll be able to be with like-minded individuals that know what it takes to win.
Coach, obviously a lot of people talk about the transfer rule and everything that's about to change in college football. Regardless of what side of the fence you stand on, how did you take that into consideration when you're determining spots and how things are going to happen? Because in January, and quite frankly now, things are going to change in college football in a hurry with this one-time transfer rule.
There's no question about it, and something that we were very aware of, as we looked at this signing class and we looked at our football roster. We're the youngest team in college football. We had 75% of our guys were sophomores or freshmen that are on our roster, and we knew that we wanted to be able to attract an incredible freshman class this year, but we also wanted to make sure that we look for that balance within our roster as we're moving forward, as we continue to see guys develop and grow. That we also have some positions that we've kind of held back to be able to evaluate not only the transfer market, but also looking at the junior college ranks. A lot of other than the state of Mississippi, all the junior colleges, most of them got pushed back to a spring season. So we wanted to be able to maintain some flexibility if there's some key positions that we wanted to add to our experience within those groups. We have the ability to do so.
Coach, how many guys did you actually sign today? Was it 16 total?
Guys that we announced here today.
Okay, so you have 9, maybe a little bit less to work with now going forward for these transfers and such, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I got a final question for you, and it's really kind of leaving the world of recruiting behind. You talked about how young your team is. There's a lot of cancellations. Teams are kind of bowing out of the bowl picture right now. There's some worry there may not be enough teams. That might make an opportunity for a team like yours to get into a bowl bid and get those extra practices. Is that something you guys would consider?
Well, our focus right now is really on this week. We play Wake Forest on Saturday. This has been it's been a long season. There's been a lot of challenges, not only with the changes and all the things that I've had to work through with COVID and quarantines and all those different factors, but also just on these guys' bodies. I mean, the mental strain and kind of grind that they've been on, but also the physical. So we're gonna keep all of our focus on this week ahead, and then we'll be able to evaluate things as we're moving past that. But right now, our main focus is on Wake Forest here this Saturday.
All right, well, Coach, on behalf of the biggest FSU fan in Atlanta, Georgia, Sandra Golden, who is our morning show host, we want to thank you so much for coming on board. We want to wish you the best of luck going forward at Florida State, and hope we get to see you again next year.
Absolutely. You guys have a great rest of the day, and go Noles.
Thanks, Coach.
Thanks, Coach.
Thank you, Coach. That's Coach Mike Norvell of the Florida State Seminoles joining us after a very successful signing day. And, guys, I think he made note very openly of the fact that, like every coach, I think, in America, he's holding some scholarships back for transfers. We're going to get into that some more and do some more talking about what went on today in signing day all across Georgia and even further. So keep it right here on 680 The Fan. We're currently on WFOM. This is the Fans National Signing Day Special. Welcome back to 680 The Fans National Signing Day Special here on WFOM. And at 8 o'clock, by that little programming note, we will go from WFOM to 680 The Fans main signal, but we will stay streaming live on YouTube for the entire 2 hours till 9 o'clock. I'm Doug Conkle, Rusty Mansell 24/7 Sports, Cody Chaffins of Fox 5 Atlanta here with me. And we are brought to you tonight by Duffy Realty of Atlanta, AquaGuard Foundation Solutions. I've used them personally. They do a great job. Georgia Power. I guess I've had to use them personally because you don't get any lights on without them. Fox 5 Atlanta, of course, and Academy Sports and Outdoors. Right before the break, we were joined by Mike Norvell of Florida State. It's odd to say that somebody's taking over a challenge at such a historically successful program, but he has stepped into a pretty big challenge in that program.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to believe. Growing up when I did with Charlie Ward and all those guys and the history of that, I know Brad Johnson well, covering his two kids. And you just think about the Florida State team from the 80s and 90s, like they were ruthless. And even early 2000s, it's hard to believe that these kids today don't know that. I mean, they have no idea what Florida State once was. And do I think they can get there? I think they can get back. I do. I think they can get back to being in the talks is what they need to be back. But at one time, Florida State was, you did not want to see them on the side because they would hurt you.
They're one of the few teams that they could have gone to a game with no coach and they win more time than they lose because they were just that much out-athlete you at every position.
I remember looking at seeing Derek Brooks and those guys. I mean, they were
from Pensacola, by the way, near my hometown.
Yep, they would come down. I saw them play Miami. I think it was the year they beat them for the first time, like 93 or something like that. Matt Fryer catches a touchdown pass in the end zone.
That was after a series of missed field goals
all the wide right, wide left, whatever. So I go to Tallahassee and watch them play just to check it off to see a Miami-Florida State game. And I remember watching them come down on kickoff. Their 10 guys on kickoff were like incredible looking athletes, and they came down in a hurry. Of course, Miami had Ray Lewis and all those guys, so it wasn't shabby. But you see that type of athletes on the field from the state of Florida, incredible.
Yeah, that was like an NFL game.
Yeah, it's interesting. We talked about Bryson Essie's the kid from Elka who is going down there. They also got another winner when they picked up the transfer from UCF, Mackenzie Milton, the quarterback, who is just such a great story, and I think people are cheering for him. But 27-6 before, big injury for him. But it'll be exciting to see him kind of start a new chapter, and maybe he can come there. And like he said, you got to have people in the building who expect to win and know what that looks like on a day-to-day basis.
Let's be honest, Florida State, it starts at quarterback play. They've got to find a guy that can win. You got to have a guy that can go in that locker room or go into the huddle and know the other 10 guys have got to know, hey, this guy can make a play for us. And I think Florida State, that's the gap closer for them. If they can get a playmaker there, because they're going to have athletes at Florida State. They're just going to have athletes, and it's going to get better. But if they can get that consistency at quarterback play under Norvell and this new staff, I think that's what's going to separate these guys.
And Norvell comes from Memphis.
Sure. They did a great job.
Great job. And what they did with the quarterbacks there, they didn't need a superstar, but they had plenty of playmakers, and that quarterback's job was to get them to the playmakers.
Yeah, it's the ball distributor.
Yes.
You got to be JT Daniels at Georgia. I mean, Georgia fans can talk, and really the jury's still out on what he's going to do, but what he does, he gives your playmakers opportunities.
Right.
George Pickens caught 2 balls last weekend that were easily 50-50 balls, easily, and he just went and made a play for you. Brock Vandegrift, I saw Brock Vandegrift throw one. He underthrew one Friday night. He threw a long ball, but his receiver jumped up over 2 guys. Well, Brock Vandegrift got those 57 yards, to his total. So that's what you want, is somebody can help your team, and those other guys in the huddle go. You see it at Georgia. You see George Pickens; those guys are bouncing around, they're blocking it, and they know they're going to get opportunities now. So, I think that's the next step for Florida State, and getting a guy like Milton this week was a big deal.
And like we said before we said goodbye to Coach Norvell, they have 16 guys signed today.
Yep.
He kind of indicated maybe there's 1 or 2 more that aren't public yet.
Sure.
But that's still a pretty good amount in the bank. We're probably talking 7-8 scholarships right now.
Yeah.
Maybe they signed a couple guys in February, but we all know the rest is for that transfer portal.
I'll tell you right now, they're going to hit it hard. When I realized they got 7 spots left, they're trying to let's get a left tackle, let's get a lockdown corner, let's get a running back, wide receiver, something. That's a lot, but look, it's out there, and these guys can go. I mean, these guys can come play now. So
it's not quite official yet, but it is almost as surest thing you're ever going to bet on in your life that transfer rule is going to pass.
Free agency, yeah. So, yep.
And they'll be able to go to. They'll be able to get the best players from the Gang of 5, from the G5 teams, maybe a couple P5 guys. A school like Florida State will have their pick, and they'll be able to reload immediately.
Yep.
Now, the downside is, guys, is now with this rule in place, there's going to be less scholarships for guys coming out of high school.
It's really rough on the 2021 class, and I saw Johnny White from Douglas County. We all know Coach White, long-time coach in the Atlanta area, put out a tweet yesterday and said, look, I'm not complaining about the transfer portal, but I am saying it's unfair to these 2021 kids, because they have kids that normally have offers, and there's nobody calling them right now because all the colleges are waiting to see what's going to happen. Even down to like the Kennesaw States and all those guys, they're waiting to see what trickles down to them before they decide if they're going to take a high school kid versus maybe a transfer from South Carolina or maybe a transfer from anywhere else. So it's really right now is the new word in college football is roster management. Period. A couple years ago it was blue shirt. That was the word. Now it's roster management, and who can do that the best is who's going to elevate themselves quickly in this game.
My big question about that is, does it take some of the shine off a day like today? Because these people, especially fans of these teams, they have freaked out over some of these players for months now.
Yes.
And you have finally got pen to paper, and they are coming to wherever it is. but for how long is the question.
Let's take Georgia just for example, because I know a large portion of our audience is Georgia.
And they want it to be 8:45 right now, so you can talk to Kirby Smart.
If Brock Vandegrift committed this morning, the Georgia fan base would have went berserk. I mean, it's been all over social media. Everybody been walking around like peacocks with their chest out. We got the man. He's been committed so long that he signed today. Everybody's like, that's good. He's in the boat. And Allen Green, like 2 weeks ago, it was amazing news. But like today, he signed. So there's a little bit of that left. But now I'm going to say this name, and I got to be real careful because this name draws a totally different level of attention. Eric Gilbert. So if Eric Gilbert doesn't go back to LSU, and just say Georgia gets him in like 2 weeks, it will be massive. It will be massive news. It will overshadow anything they sign today because of who he is and that kind of thing. So and wherever Eric Gilbert, if he does end up somewhere else, it's going to be huge. But if he winds up here because of the people that know him in this state, those types of things, that's a great question, Cody, because some of these transfers, and let's be honest, I mean, Oklahoma's winning national championships with transfer quarterbacks. I mean, they're getting guys. They had 2 or 3 in a row, and look what Jalen Hurts is doing in the NFL now. So those transfer guys are going to make noise, and it's really what position you get those guys at.
In my opinion, guys, is what this is going to do is it's going to make February count a little bit again.
Sure.
The last couple of years, February has really been where most of the guys who are going to play FBS have already signed, and it was the lower levels. And that's still going to be the case for most of them, I think.
Yeah.
But if you're, if you're Georgia Tech, maybe even Georgia State, and you held back 7 scholarships, and you got 4 or 5 transfers, and you got a couple scholarships to burn, because by February you might have a pretty good idea who your transfers are going to be. You might go back to the well now and see who's left, and there's going to be some good players sitting out there in February, so it might bring it back a little bit.
We'll talk to Coach Collins more, but I'm telling you right now, they got Kenyatta Watson from Texas, and they got Kevin Harris from Alabama.
They have loaded up on the transfer market already.
No matter what Georgia Tech signed today, they got guys that's going to start for them. It's almost like the NFL draft where you take a guy in the first, second round, he's going to play. When you take a spot, when you take an initial to take a Kenyatta Watson or one of those guys, they're expecting you to play immediately. So, that's how you can bolster your roster and get better in a heartbeat real quick. So much easier than it was 15 years ago because now Kenyatta Watson, all those guys, they'd be sitting out a year. Mm-hmm. We wouldn't see them for a year and a half. We're going to see these guys hopefully in spring practice in a couple weeks in March.
It's interesting you talked about the guys that will transfer, and you talked about Georgia State, Doug, and Georgia Tech. Being in Atlanta, that's the place where you get the guys who say, you know what, I was homesick.
Sure.
Maybe I didn't want to go that far away.
Yep.
And that can be the landing spot for them. It was very interesting to me, and I know we don't talk a ton of Georgia State, but Georgia State today signed just a few guys from the state of Georgia. It was one of those things when that program came into existence, we said, oh, they'll clean up. They can just get all the leftovers, the 3 stars from that Tech and Georgia can't get. Well, no, they signed. Coach Sean Elliott has gone outside.
Sure.
He picked a guy up, a couple guys here and there, a couple guys from Athens, somebody from Savannah, but really has gone outside. But he also can benefit from those transfers, getting a little homesick.
It's so easy to fly into Atlanta. That's what, and I'll say this. I believe I can say this for him. I know Sam Pittman's thoughts were we're going to recruit Georgia because that's an hour and 15-minute flight directly into Fayetteville. They come in, they get a kid from Cripps County. They get a kid from Tri-Cities. Cameron Ball today committed to Arkansas over Georgia Tech. They go to Cedartown and get Jaden Johnson, who committed to South Carolina, decommits. So you start talking about people that come into this state and come back, but there's other ways to do it. It's so easy to fly out of here to anywhere. You can fly direct anywhere out of Atlanta. So some of these schools come in. I remember Mike Bobo at Colorado State was like, I can recruit a kid at South Georgia, and he could be at the airport at 6 a.m., and he can be sitting in Fort Collins, Colorado at 2 o'clock our time. That was their sale. So they go out. You look at the Colorado State roster he left. There's guys from Tucker. There's guys from Cartersville. There's guys from Grayson. All those guys are are playing out there. By the way, they almost played in Athens this weekend. I don't want to bring up a sore subject, but that was pretty close to happening from a lot of people I talked to. So there's different ways to look at that. There's kids that are coming home, but there's also why these other schools are so heavy coming in here, because it's a direct flight anywhere.
And it's cheap, right? If you're Miami of Ohio,
sure,
you pay for your assistant coach a plane ticket down here, and he can hit 30 to 40 prospects in a single trip. It's hard to do that when you're
and that's kind of the problem you get into, because there's kind of the rumor or kind of the stigma that the Metro Atlanta kids are over recruited because one school comes in, lands at the airport, and they start just dropping offers. We'll offer all 5 of your sophomores. Well, the next school that comes in, if they don't offer all 5 of your sophomores, they're out. So they got to offer. So it puts some people kind of in a pickle, because those out-of-state schools sometimes come in and make offers that really aren't committable, and it puts them in a bad spot. I remember, and it's over now, so I can bring the school up. About 8-9 years ago, Illinois came down with a previous staff, and they came down and offered everybody in the state. Well, those kids tried to commit, and they didn't take any of them. Well, you know what? They didn't come back in those schools for about 3 years either. So the next coach staff had to come in and make things, clean it up a little bit. But when they come in and start dropping offers, you better be ready to take one, because these high school coaches in Georgia do talk. And if you're on the bad list for the high school coaches in Metro Atlanta, you're in a very bad spot.
You brought up some of those smaller schools, and that's one of the things that we miss with our normal signing day spectaculars. We get to see some of these guys not going big places, and it's been fun for me this year, because I've been doing stories every week, talking to players in the NFL who
great stories,
who their families, and a lot of these guys weren't recruited by the big schools.
Sure,
you got a guy like Buster Screen from Etowah, who was 2 inches too short to be considered by anybody, who's been in the NFL for a long time. It was even at the Senior Bowl this year. And you talk about Antonio Gibson, who is starring right now for Washington in the NFL. Well, he's had to go to JUCO, and then he ended up at Memphis, where he got the ball by Mike Norvell.
He was at Eagles Landing, but he was at the other Eagles Landing.
Right. He's not even at Eagles Landing Christian, which is the big one. So you got a lot of these small-town guys that are making names for themselves, and they're going to some smaller schools. I think of C.J. Maribel right now doing it at Coastal Carolina, which is, I guess, not a smaller school, but came out of Towers High School.
And he went to Presbyterian College first, and he dropped football, and then he ended up at Coastal.
So it's so interesting to watch some of those younger guys and some of those smaller school guys, because we in Atlanta put those guys out everywhere.
Oh yeah, somebody. I had a college coach tell me one time, and it always stuck with me. He said, the state of Florida might have better athletes, but the state of Georgia kids are better coached. They're ready to play when they come on campus, and truthfully, that's there's some truth to that. And I think I test that to the high school coaching in Georgia. Take example, the Dalton job's open. I mean, I bet you I've had 100 calls from coaches in Tennessee and South Carolina. Hey, you know anybody up there? Can I, trying to get here? And the reason is because it's a great area, but there's great pay. Even the Woodstock job, all those are up. I'm getting all these calls, and it's not anybody from the state of Georgia. It's from other coaches in other places.
Yeah, they know. Well, speaking of the state of Georgia, let's get back to today's signing. And so Georgia got the top 3 guys in the state, according to the 24/7 ranking composite. They got Amarius Sims out of Bleckley County, and, of course, Brock Vandegrift, already talked about him, Prince Avenue Christian. Smail Mondon out of Paulding County. It wasn't that long ago that Georgia might get 1 or 2 of the top 3, but Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State, someone's going to come along and grab one of those guys. So, all in all, Rusty, is this one of the more dominating performances by the Bulldogs?
I mean, they've had great classes. I mean, they've had top-ranked classes, and they're not going to have that here. I think they were able to find what they needed in state. And, again, Amarius Mims, to people that haven't seen him, if he walked through here right now, you would never guess he's 315. I promise you would think he weighs 270. He's 6'7.5", basketball kid, very lean, very athletic. And you look at Nyland Green, Georgia needs corners, in the worst way. You lose Jordan Hancock from North Gwinnett to Ohio State. So you cannot afford to miss on Nyland Green. You had to have a 6'2" corner that get him over some other guys. And obviously it starts with quarterback. We talked about that with Brock Vandegrift. I tell you, the sleeper, to me, the guy that doesn't get enough publicity, is Dylan Fairchild at West Forsyth.
Mm-hmm.
You're talking about a kid that at the start of his junior year, he was right at 6'4", about 250. The first time I saw him, maybe 6'3.5". He's probably close to 6'5", 295 right now. And, oh, by the way, he's 37-0 last year as the state heavyweight wrestling champion in 7A. He hasn't lost a wrestling match since he was a sophomore. I mean, this is a kid. I watched him play a couple weeks ago. They beat North Gwinnett, upset North Gwinnett. He played both ways in that game. And this is a guy that people don't talk about. So you start talking about all those things and sleepers. Georgia was able to get offensive linemen. They were able to get some DBs. They got David Daniel out of Woodstock, some other guys. Lost one today in Deshaun Warren, but there were some guys there. I think really Georgia looked at this and said, we don't have to go to California. Amarius Mims is here. Dylan Fairchild's here. Michael Morris, Camden County. We don't have to go to Isaiah Wilson up in Brooklyn. We don't have to go to Knoxville to get a Cade Mays and fight all these World War IIIs for those guys. We can take care of the home state school.
Did part of that have to do with the no traveling this year? These in-state Georgia guys
No, I mean,
know it better?
I think it helped them some because these kids didn't get to take visits. I mean, I know that, I know some of these kids took those pandemic visits, but regardless, you can't sit there with your mom and dad in Jeff Collins' office, in Kirby Smart's office, and sit there and have those questions. You're having to do it over a Zoom and talk about those things. So it was very different, but I do think that Georgia had done a lot of work. You don't get those guys just starting to recruit them in March. These are 2 or 3 year cycle guys. And Dylan Fairchild was different because he kind of blew up. Brock Vandegrift was a kid that was committed to Oklahoma, but give some credit to James Coley, who the former OC. He really stayed in there at Georgia, and when he left, Coach Monken was in there, Kirby Smart. They knew him well. So those are guys they have been recruiting for about 2 or 3 years to get those kids. But I do think that they had to stay home more because coaches hadn't seen these kids. I mean, they signed them. They hadn't seen them since, February, January last year.
You talked about the Zoom recruiting.
It's crazy.
Brock Vandegrift was actually able to do a little bit more than that. He seemed like Georgia's biggest recruiter this
year. The best thing that Georgia had, the major advantage is they had Brock Vandegrift. And when they said, hey, such is coming in town, Brock Vandegrift and his family would meet him, go have dinner, show them around the campus, everything perfectly legal. I mean, it was a perfect storm for Georgia. And I can't tell you how many times I'd talk to Brock's dad. He'd be like, Brock's got somebody from Texas is here this weekend. I don't know. He's here. But Amarius Mims came up and got really, really close with him. They did a lot of fishing in the summer. I mean, Amarius Mims was up here more than people would ever know this summer. I mean, he was going to Georgia for a long time, I think. Tennessee certainly made it close, but he spent a ton of time in Athens with Brock Vandegrift. I mean, Georgia fans should be ecstatic that young man is in this class and that close.
Rusty, are there any misses, you think, in-state at least for Georgia?
But Barrett Carter.
Out of North Gwinnett. You just mentioned
Barrett Carter is absolutely. It's Roquan Smith. There's no question in my mind. It is Roquan Smith. He can be a top 10 NFL draft pick. He is such a superstar on and off the field. In fact, the North Gwinnett coaching staff, when I met with them to do their game a couple weeks ago, they said we call him old man. Like he comes in, sits down like with a cup of coffee like us. He sits down and, he's the last guy to leave the weight room. He's just he listens to country music, rap, everything. He's an old soul in a freakazoid young body is what he is. And he loves football. I mean, he sent me Barrett Carter owes me nothing. He sent me a long text message on Thanksgiving Day, like, hey, thank you for everything. I mean, just little things like that separates and tells you recruiting never affected him. He grew up a Georgia fan. Clemson did a tremendous job of selling him. He's the next Isaiah Simmons, which he might be. He's not quite as tall as him, but the way they used him and got him in the first round, I will be surprised if Barrett Carter's not a superstar in Clemson, because I'm telling you, man, he checks every single box off the field, academically, attitude, athleticism, loves the game, plays both ways. He had like 270 yards rushing.
It's been so much fun to watch in these playoffs.
You're sitting there in your North Gwinnett, and you have a lot of really good players.
Sure.
But Bill Stewart, when they lift weights in that first morning in January, looks around and Barrett Carter's not there, that's going to hurt a little bit.
You'll feel that one.
It's been so much fun to watch in the playoffs because they get to the point where they'll get down by the goal line, right, and they can't get it in first down. It's like, all right, just put in Barrett.
Yeah.
Let him just hike it straight to him. It reminds me so much of that's what Gainesville used to do with Alexander Johnson, A.J. Johnson.
Yep.
He just hike him the ball.
Yep.
He's the best guy out on the field. He will go score, and he's done it now in the playoffs against the best of the best. I feel like they're leaning on that even more.
Yeah, and the first game of the year I called against McEachern in Corky Kell Classic, and it was late in the game, and some of the kids had substituted. You look out there, he's there. They throw a pick route, tried to pick him. He steps in front of the guy, anticipation, picks it off, pick six. because his football IQ, he was route recognition. He knew the formation, knew what they were going to throw. They even tried to pick him. He steps in front, picks it off, pick six. It's hard to teach that.
You know how I can tell he's mature? It's the simplest way in the world. If you look at the pictures on the profiles on 24/7,
yeah,
kids love to grimace, right?
Yeah.
They don't want to smile. Not him, man. He has got a big old smile blazing at you. That's a confident young man who doesn't have to, do what everybody else does.
Well, he competed on Fox 5.
Yep.
He was our pandemic. We had to figure out how we're going to do it. We did it in his backyard, which was very cool. But he had some other opportunities to do, I would say, on a larger platform. And he said, "Hey, we talked to y'all first. We're sticking with y'all." And I was like, let's roll.
And he was meeting his parents was a big
awesome.
It was really nice. He's one of those guys, you asked about it, Doug, but one of those guys that a year or two from now, people are going to say, how did he get out of another Georgia guy doing it for Clemson? And I look down that list, and I think another guy, that running back from Grayson, Phil Maffa, is going to go to Clemson too. Yeah. He might be a guy where we're like, how did he? Well, Georgia's got a lot of running backs, but man, it'd been nice to have him.
Miles Murphy from Hillgrove is a superstar up there already. And they do a great job of coming in. And I'll say this, Georgia on the defensive side hasn't had a lot of success head-to-head with Clemson, just being honest. Now, the numbers are there. This particular class, they beat them on Kamari Lassiter, the cornerback from Alabama, and they beat them on Nyland Green, but they did beat Georgia for Barrett Carter. So, it kind of evened out. But, you look at the amount of players from the state of Georgia. It starts with that guy that can sling it around a little bit, number 16 up there. But they've got playmakers on both sides of the ball, and they should recruit the state of Georgia. I mean, it's so close.
Sure, it's 2 hours from Alpharetta to Clemson. I can tell you that it's no big drive at all. Speaking of quarterbacks, I'll put you on the spot a little bit. The one quarterback out there in the state of Georgia, highest-rated guy on the board, who still has, as far as we know, is not signed anywhere as of right now at almost 8 o'clock on signing day. Jake Garcia out of Grayson at the moment. You've been a few other places.
By way of.
You mentioned having to follow guys around different schools. That's the guy who's gone a couple of coasts already. Any word on what he's thinking right now?
I think Miami's a team there, and he could sign over the next couple of days. Still have that 72-hour window.
Sure.
And I'm going to say this, because when you look at it on paper, there was a big ESPN story. Mom and dad got separated for him. This is what Coach Carter told me, and this is what Coach Probst told me. He was doing everything he can to play high school football. He did not. He had a scholarship at USC. He could have sat on that, sit out there and threw 7-on-7. Financially, they had means to make it work to come to Georgia for 6 or 7 months, and that's all he wanted to do was play football. Coach Carter said since he's been at Grayson, he goes, Rusty, this kid loves it now. He loves football. He's got a big high IQ. I'm excited to watch him play Norcross, because we all know Norcross's defense is ridiculous this week. I'm not sure that field's going to be in the best.
All right, breaking news, guys. Dan Matthews just texted me. I guess he's listening out there somewhere. Thanks, Dan. That Garcia has committed to Miami.
Committed.
So we haven't. It didn't say signed yet, but apparently that is where he's headed. So you might be right on that one.
We'll see where he signs, and I think he'll sign in the next couple of days. But the writing was on the wall. USC tried to bring in multiple quarterbacks. I think he's over here a little bit. I know Florida State. I wish I could ask. I guess I couldn't ask Coach Fulbright.
You couldn't ask Coach.
I know Florida State was trying to get him when he was at Valdosta for sure, but Miami's been on him for a while. So, you look at that with him, and I think that the perception of him's a little bit wrong right now, because I know if I had a son and he wanted to play that bad and I had the financial means, I would probably do what I had to do. I don't know if I could divorce anybody over it or a legal separation over the weekend. But, again, at the end of the day, he's just trying to play high school football. What a story if he comes to Georgia. And if Grayson wins a state championship, here's a kid that was here, about 12 weeks out of 20, and would walk out with a state championship.
A kid like that, as highly regarded as he is, he could wait till February, and most schools in the nation would accept him. I just don't know what he's looking for.
You know what would be crazy if he's committed and he doesn't sign. You don't know how the quarterback rooms are going to shake out.
True.
And I know we've talked about this name many times. He actually played to the night, which Knox Kadum, young man out of Rome. Mm-hmm. He was committed to James Madison. Well, Virginia Tech, the last week before February, Knox rolled the dice. He had some other schools that tried to sign him in December. He held off. Rolled the dice, and James Madison was kind of the spot he was going to end up in. Virginia Tech had 2 quarterbacks leave 1 week. They make a call. He's on the plane the next morning, commits a day later, like 2 days before signing day. Something like that could happen with Jake Garcia, that a school that may not be in it right now very much could be in February.
Let me ask you a kind of a tough question, both you guys. Which high school is going to really get the mantle of this was an amazing class from this school and the impact they had on the next level?
Oh, well, I mean, you go by numbers. You got to look at Grayson.
Sure.
I mean,
I think Westlake is up there too.
Westlake
with some of the guys that again ended up at Westlake playing this year.
Well, we can talk about the current roster. You look at those guys, and we don't want to get into where they were, but where they are at.
Sure, where they're graduating.
Westlake certainly with the playmakers. They got Dakari Collins and Nate Wiggins and those guys. They got guys going to Clemson. They got guys going to LSU. You talking about a football game? Westlake and Lake County this week is going to be some flat-out dudes. But I think as far as pure numbers, you're probably going to look at Grayson with the amount of players they have. And, I can do a football game anywhere in Georgia. If you give me 20 minutes to look at a roster, I'll be fine. Grayson, that thing's already printed out. Like, I'm having to go through their sophomores. I mean, they got offer after offer after offer. They got kids that aren't starting. They got a freshman right now playing center. He's probably got 5 or 6 offers. He's a freshman. So you got to take your time and go through Grayson's roster. But as far as, bang for your buck there, I think we've got to look at Grayson by numbers.
I think Marietta a couple of years ago, or just a year ago.
Last year. B.J. Ojolari. Hey, look at the impact.
Huge.
Hey, nobody talks about Ricky White at Michigan State. He flat out tore Michigan up 200 yards first game. True freshman. So you start talking about now, he came from another school, and Eric Gilbert came in. But as far as where they ended, Marietta last year, Marietta was playing as good as anybody in the country last year, and they went to Las Vegas and destroyed a really good team from Seattle, Washington.
Matt Harrison Bailey got a chance to start for Tennessee before the year was up at quarterback.
Yeah,
it's pretty tough in the SEC.
Yeah, I think Harrison, I think Coach Pruitt said, I talked to his dad back in maybe late September, Harrison's dad, and the COVID deal really set him back. Not only he got a contact tracing that hurt him, then he actually got it a couple of weeks later, so he got double whammied, and then it wasn't able to get a lot of reps in fall camp. Really set him back. But Tennessee's kind of struggled a little bit, and they've got to make some decisions. And I think Harrison stepped his big game this weekend, Texas A&M, because the problem is Texas A&M needs to put on a show. How much will the Tennessee kids be ready to play, and who will they play is kind of the questions for me.
It's been so much fun to watch on Saturdays this fall. The state of Georgia quarterbacks all over, whether it be Harrison Bailey. Bailey Hockman's still around, starting at NC State.
Davis Mills, Stanford.
Davis Mills out in Stanford. We saw what Max Johnson did. And then
Malik Willis.
Malik Willis.
I forget about him,
Yeah, it's been so – I mean, what do you think it is about this area producing that quarterback talent
coaching.
Right now?
Not only is it great coaching, they get great off-season training. There's a couple of guys in Atlanta. I'm really Ron Veal, who is Justin Fields, Trevor Lawrence, Brock Vandegrift's coach. I mean, he's a former Arizona quarterback. He's a fireman here. This guy's going to have probably not number 1, number 2 draft picks that he's trained. Tony Ballard, they run one of the best Adidas, the fully sponsored Adidas 7-on-7 team. You can say what you want, any opinion you want on Cam Newton. I've been around him. He puts in a ton of work in the offseason with his kid. That's the first time I saw Malik Willis was playing with George Pickens and Jaden Hazelwood, and Malik Willis and Justin Fields was the junior on that team. So all these kids get so much work in the offseason. They're so polished and ready to play. But I will say this, there's great high school coaching, but there's really good off-season coaching and training in the Atlanta area that benefits these kids.
All right, guys, we're going to take a quick break, come back and knock it around for a few more minutes. Then the top of the hour comes. That's 8 o'clock. We're going to expand our coverage. It's going to go into the 680 The Fan signal from 8 to 9. And we're going to talk to Shane Beamer, Jeff Collins, and
Excited
Kirby
about
Smart.
that. Excited about Coach Beamer.
It's going to be a great time in the next hour. Everyone should hang around. Keep it right here. You're listening to the 680 The Fan's National Signing Day special on WFOM. Welcome back. Final segment of the 7 o'clock hour here on 680 The Fans National Signing Day Special. We're currently on WFOM with you guys, and of course we are streaming on YouTube for the full duration of the show at 8 o'clock coming up at the top of the hour. We're also going to add in the 680 The Fan signal, 93.7 on your FM dial for folks listening around town. I would recommend, though, if you go to the YouTube stream, you unfortunately will have to look at us, but eventually you might get a look at Kirby Smart, Jeff Collins, or Shane Beamer all joining us in the 8 o'clock hour.
Yes, you do.
Rusty, people are used to looking at you, Cody. You're in the video business on Fox 5 Atlanta.
Makeup that I'm used to. I do want to talk to you, Rusty. We talked on Fox 5 actually tonight at 6:50 about this Jackson State thing because it was so interesting. I think when our old friend Primetime decided to go there, we said, oh, he just wants to coach his kids. That's cute. It's a great publicity stunt. If people want to get HBCUs back involved, that's cool. And then today, we talked earlier, too, about Lane Kiffin retweets. I didn't lose a recruit to Jackson State. Georgia Bulldogs not able to say that today.
Yeah, I mean, Deshaun Warren, here's a young man. I actually flew to D.C. to break his commitment and spent some time with him. Here's a young man that was the first in his family to even go to junior college. I mean, he goes there. He didn't even play his junior year of high school, comes out back and plays his senior year way behind. Kind of has a decent first year, but second year at Lackawanna up in Pennsylvania, he tears it up. I mean, and he was really upset that they postponed the football season where he couldn't go back and train and he had to do everything online. And he kind of was on his own type deal. So, he was finishing up some classes. He didn't probably get to the amount of calories he wanted every day. And, it's just different when you're at home, and all that's for everyone. So, I think that Deion and those guys went after him and said, look, you don't have to share here. You come here and you're the headliner. You are the guy, and it worked. And they got him. And that's one of those where, I know some Georgia fans are kind of upset and shocked. But I don't want to get too personal with him, but this is a kid you root for. Wherever he's at, you want him to succeed. You want him to get to the NFL because if he gets to the NFL, he's going to change his whole family's life and everybody around him. And I think, just meeting him and spending some time with him in D.C. For that day, really just hope I sent him a DM today and said, look, man, I don't care where you end up. I'm a fan, and I hope you make it all the way to your biggest dreams and change lives around you and take care of everybody. So with that being said, they did flip him, and that was a big get for Jackson State because it was everywhere. ESPN, it was everywhere. It was great publicity for them.
I didn't look at the Jackson State class, but I do know that they got Deion's son, who was from the transfer port out of South Carolina. He'll come play defensive back. Yep. They got a transfer offensive lineman out of Missouri. I know they got a couple of guys from the junior college ranks in Mississippi who were guys who had FBS offers and opportunities, and in some cases were committed to, say, a G5 school. So, I mean, the Deion effect is in full effect right now, right?
Yeah, and it doesn't seem like it's something repeatable for other teams in the SWAC, but I think somebody like Deion who has that personality, who has that fatherly figure, he seems like somebody you would want to go play for. I think that's definitely had an effect, and Alcorn State's on notice.
I tell you this, it's going to be good for the whole league because he's going to put games on TV. There's going to be some of those ESPNUs. There's going to be a Saturday night. I guarantee you Deion will schedule some Tuesday night games to get his team on TV. So it's going to help the SWAC. It's going to be great for everybody. And he's going to bring a ton of publicity to that league.
Like we said after we talked with Coach Norvell from Florida State about the athletes they used to have, Jackson State, and of course Deion was one of those athletes at Florida State, Jackson State's going to have that sort of status in that league now. They're going to be able to out-athlete a very athletic FCS conference with the kind of players he's bringing in. And I don't know much about his coaching staff. I know he's got a lot of NFL experience here, though, to lean on.
Yeah, I mean, he's been all over his Under Armour camps and all that kind of stuff. He's been all over TV. Plus, Trinity Christian School out in the school he's running out in California or Texas for a while. He had him on ESPN. Yeah. So,
We got a lot of Jackson State for this show. I really didn't anticipate us going in that direction, but we absolutely did. Rusty, let's take a quick look at the SEC before we get to the top of the hour. We bring on Coach Beamer and, of course, Coach Smart at the end of the hour. We even talk some ACC around the Jeff Collins interview coming up around 8:15. But looking at the SEC, any surprises at other schools outside of Georgia, either positive or negative? And maybe some of these schools going through coaching transitions might have had a surprise.
Really and truthfully, we talked about a little bit at the start the way Ole Miss did, and LSU lost some and took some. I think Arkansas had a very, very solid class. I think they were in some needs. I know from talking to one of their guys this week, they're saving spots for some transfers as well. But Mississippi State kind of took some lumps. But I will say this: Mike Leach is kind of that mold. Or we'll get some guys, we'll coach them up. They'll fit our system, right. And you kind of know that when you get him, that's what you're going to do. So his first kind of cycle into the world of losing guys, I'm pretty sure he probably didn't lose this many guys this late where he was before, but it's going to be a war to get these guys to sign and get them all the way. But Lane Kiffin surely with the Mary Flippus.
Well, we had in the schools you were just discussing, we had some kind of ups and downs. Yeah, Ole Miss did pretty well. They flipped a few guys. LSU had a couple of guys flipped by Alabama, but then they went out and won some recruiting battles later in the day, and they signed some guys you weren't sure they were going to get. Mason Smith is probably the biggest name they got, defensive tackle out of Louisiana.
I'll tell you what, if you haven't watched Mason Smith, that guy, I mean, he's 6'6", whatever, and he's lost like 40 pounds. He's this athletic freak, and you look at those top players, and really the history of the SEC, what separated them from leagues has been the defensive line.
Yeah, the big athletes.
The big athletes, man. And I used to sit at the All-American Bowl out in Texas, and I could say when a guy walked down the hall, if I didn't know him, I could guarantee you he either had an offer from Alabama or LSU, or somebody has offered those big D linemen, and those guys walked through there. And I remember Jacob Eason's first practice. He's standing there, and it's like Derek Brown and all those guys, Julian Rochester, and all those guys are like 6'6", and I'm looking at him in the huddle. I said, Jacob, what's going on? He goes, man, all I see is eyes. And he goes, where I'm from, I got a nice clean pocket. I can just graze over everybody. He goes, now all I see is these guys just running right at me, and they're eye level. So that's what separates, and Mason Smith's certainly one of those guys.
I'll tell you, my biggest surprise, honestly, it was Auburn.
Yeah.
Who doesn't have a head coach. We don't know who the next coach is going to be. And they went and signed a dozen guys today. They kept some commitments from some guys that could have gone anywhere. They kept a few of those, and they added a few guys. Maybe a few of them weren't the biggest names and didn't have all the options in the world, but they did pretty good for a team with no coach.
It's one of those things the kids always have to remember is you're committing to the school, right? And so maybe if you get these guys who have committed to your school, maybe they're not in the transfer portal so soon because they want to be down there. They like the atmosphere inside Jordan-Hare. But, it's also going to be one of those things where they get the new coach and then they may figure out, well, I don't fit in that system. Right. So It's going to be interesting.
Actually, that's a great point because now maybe a kid is a little more willing to take a chance. It's okay if I sign with Auburn because if it doesn't work out, I got this free transfer coming up, and I can find the place I need to be with my second stop.
I'm telling you, roster management, boys, is going to change the game.
Yeah. Now, I'll tell you one thing, though, too, and I think we all know this as well, that the time is going to show there's a lot more guys go in the portal than come out of the portal because schools aren't going to hold 10 or 12 scholarships back. They're going to hold 3 or 4 or 5.
3, yep.
And there's going to be a lot of guys who think they could go somewhere bigger, and the bigger's not there, and they end up going smaller before it's all said and done.
Sure. And the kids I talk to that I've got relationships with that leave places, they might be at a bigger school, and they hit me up, and they're like, look, I'm just trying to play.
Right.
I'm just trying to play. So it's a little bit different for most of those guys. Some kids are at a smaller school. They're like, I'm better than this. I'm trying to go here. So two ways about it.
Well, like I said at the top of the show, I think that's going to really affect the whole recruiting rating game because especially if a kid is a guy who's leaving because he didn't have playing time, it's going to be really hard for the guys like Barton Simmons at 24/7 to evaluate this guy because you don't want to go with his high school score anymore because you're not sure if that's how he turned out to be, but you don't have nothing to evaluate him on why he was in college, too, if he didn't play.
Yeah, I mean, we'll have some meetings about that. We've talked about how we're going to rank that thing, and listen, it's hard enough for me to give the eval in high school. I'm going to let those guys handle the transfer stuff. I don't know who's gained weight, who's did what. That's out of my pay range right there.
It's one of those things I'm interested to see out of this class as well is whether we get more Bradley Chubb, since these teams haven't been able to get their hands on these players in over a year now, or coming up on a year now. How many guys changed? How many guys finally grew into their bodies, or how many guys I know they can get the stats sent by the coach, but who is a different player now than the last time they got to come on campus or be at a camp?
Right. Yeah, that's the biggest thing. All the high school coaches were telling me that college was a call, and they want you to video their height and weight. So you won't check your phone there.
Stand in a doorway and all that sort of thing.
Some of the coaches I talked to, like, hey man, like such and such called. I had to video him doing dot drills. I had to video him, what he weighed. We had to measure his arms and all that. They still don't quite trust that guy. Let's put it on tape. It's amazing to a college coach the difference between 6'3" and 6'1" and 7/8. You know what I mean? It's like that's the world difference, but at the end of the day, they have a line. That's what they're looking for.
Sure, and some guys will go the other direction too during the break because they don't know how to condition, or they just don't have the motivation without somebody yelling at them.
Right, didn't have the structure of that they needed.
Right. All right, we're going to take one more break. When we come back, we will be in the 8 o'clock hour. We will also be adding the 680 The Fan, AM 680, 93.7 FM signal here in Atlanta. Going to keep streaming on YouTube. We're going to welcome Coach Shane Beamer right at the top of the hour, followed by Coach Jeff Collins, followed by Coach Kirby Smart. So keep it right here. Listening to 680 The Fan's Signing Day Special. We're presented by Duffy Realty of Atlanta, AquaGuard Foundation Solutions, Georgia Power, Fox 5 Atlanta, Academy Sports and Outdoors. And tonight we are on WFOM for a little while longer. Welcome back to 680 The Fan's National Signing Day Special. We are now truly on 680 The Fan, 93.7 FM. Also, of course, going to keep on with WFOM Extra 103 and streaming live on YouTube. That is going to go on until 9 o'clock as we bring you a lot more recruiting action from the day. And, of course, it was a busy day, the first day of the December signing period. It's a short span. It is Wednesday to Friday. Then it closes.
They're calling coach, right?
They are calling Coach Shane Beamer right now.
Sure we're on the same. This is live, so I was making sure,
We will, yeah. So we'll have Coach Beamer on with us in just a minute. So we had Coach Norvell on in the first hour, Florida State. He joined us via Zoom. By the way, sharp-looking dude, had on the blazer, not the tie.
These coaches are good at Zoom now.
Oh, they're really good at Zoom.
Well, I think Coach Beamer's in Oklahoma preparing right now with them with their championship game. So we want to talk about all that transition with him and that type of thing. So I know. I talked to some people that's very close to him, and this was a job that he has had penciled and circled for a while if it ever came open. And obviously spent some time there with Coach Spurs, so we'll talk to him about all those things. But very interesting how he's juggled the last couple of week and a half. And talking to Sam Pittman after he got the job, he said, "Man, I took off. I accepted the job. I took off." and like woke up 3 days later like, well, what the heck just happened? You know, I mean, like your phones and you're doing this, you meet with this, shaking this person's hand, and I want to kind of see how he's doing all those types of things.
But it's such a tough transition when you're coming from an active job like you are, and
sure.
And at what point do you pull the ripcord on and separate and go wholeheartedly into the new one? There's bowl games, some guys are in championship games who are changing jobs, and it's a lot of stress. You want to do the right thing, you want to have loyalty to the guys that got you there, but at the same time, I mean, you're going to be at South Carolina. You have a lot of challenges in the East. You have players you got to find. You got to get your boys in there. I mean,
well,
you got a lot of work to do.
You know, and
hiring a staff.
Yeah,
you can say that. Right. That's a big thing.
They play Iowa State Saturday. You know, the Big 12 championship.
Yeah.
You know, so
and it all gets ramped up so much more than it used to because of the early signing day. It's not like you had you can work that class for a little while.
And it's later. Normally, you'd have got done like last week, and then you did National Signing Day, and you're out. You did National Signing Day, then you got a league championship this week. Oh, yeah, by the way, you're the head coach somewhere else. So.
You know, and that's what makes the Auburn timing a little crazy, too, is they waited to the last game of the year, but now that means mid-December as opposed to it used to mean, you know, right after Thanksgiving. So I believe we have Coach Beamer on the line. Coach Beamer, are you there? Nope, not unless he's a very soft-spoken man, which I know he is not.
I'm here. Can you hear me okay?
Hey, Coach Beamer, are you there, buddy?
I am here.
All right, Coach Shane Beamer joining us, the new head coach at South Carolina, but like we were just talking about, also a current assistant in Oklahoma. So I'm going to let Rusty take it over from here and talk about the challenges and ask you the questions about that.
Coach, how you doing?
Sounds good. I'm doing awesome. How are you, Rusty?
How many times a day you charge that phone now?
I'm like searching for chargers, you know. Like, you always feel like you have enough. I don't have enough, and so everywhere I go, I make sure I've got a charger in the kitchen, a charger in the bedroom, charger in the bathroom, charger at work.
Oh man,
so, it's a good problem to have.
Talk to you a couple of questions. I remember talking to Sam Pittman after he took the Arkansas job. He said he accepted. I got on a plane. He said, man, it was like 3 days before I woke up. Like, what happened? I mean, you're shaking this person's hand. You're meeting here. Talk about the moment when you got the job. I mean, give me that next 48 hours. What was that like?
Wild. And Sam's exactly right. That's how I felt. I found out late on that Saturday night. It was an awesome, emotional moment, you know, with my family where I got that phone call and Ray Tanner, the athletic director, said to me, are you ready to do this? And I said, absolutely. I've been waiting to hear those words for a long time. So that was really cool. Great celebration. And then shortly thereafter, you know, the news had broke and so we were late into the night trying to finalize the contract and the details for me to sign. I'm getting text messages left and right throughout the night. This was probably 2 o'clock in the morning before I went to bed, and I was on a plane headed to Columbia 7 hours later. And then land in Columbia, go right to work, start meeting with coaches that are in the building, that are on the current staff at South Carolina, kind of my plans going forward, met with the team, talked to current players on the team, immediately started reaching out to recruits that day. Monday was a blur back in Columbia, still meeting with coaches, trying to get an idea of the current roster and where we are in recruiting, press conference, everything you can imagine. And then it was fly back to Oklahoma Monday night and back in the office for a 6:30 a.m. offensive staff meeting with Lincoln and the offensive staff on Tuesday morning. But I probably slept 2 or 2.5 hours those first 3 nights, and I don't remember even Tuesday. Tuesday was a blur when I came back, but finally was able to catch up on some sleep. But it's well worth it.
Coach, obviously today you signed 7 guys, and we don't have to go down each one of them, but talk about, you'll never forget these 7. These guys right here are all in with you. Tell me what this group right here, what you think early on, and what it means to you to have an official first signing class on the first day, which you got plenty to do on the second one, but talk about today in general and these guys.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. And I told those guys, I said, you know, we're going to be attached at the hip. My first signing class as a head football coach, and to have Colton from there in Atlanta send his papers in first thing this morning. I had a text that Colton was on board, and then the rest of the guys that follow suit. You know, it says a lot about those guys that you know, the first time I'd ever talked to pretty much any of them on the phone was a week ago when I got hired as the head football coach, and they easily could have waited another month and kept their options open and signed in February, but they believed in what I was saying and trusted, was willing to trust me and the current staff at South Carolina too, whether they, were on the staff going forward or not. They did a great job of continuing to recruit and work to bring this class in. And I told all those guys that you didn't commit to me. I get it. You committed to Will Muschamp. He's a great coach and a great person. But you also committed to South Carolina for a lot of reasons, and all those reasons are still in place. And the only thing that's changing is the coaching staff. I'm really thankful for those guys, and then I'm excited about the fact too that we didn't sign a big class, and that's okay. We've got another month and a half to work, but there were 2 or 3 guys signed with us that a week ago when I took the job, they flat out told me they were going to wait until February and just kind of see what happened. And then they came back around today and decided to sign today, and we're ready to move forward, which I'm really pleased about that as well.
Obviously, some Georgia flavor to this class. 4 of those guys from Georgia. You have recruited the state of Georgia. You were on Kirby Smart's staff. You recruited the state of Georgia from Oklahoma. You've been at South Carolina before. Tell me why this state is going to be important to you, and how many, got any kind of idea how many guys you're going to put in this state from your staff?
Yeah, once we put together that staff, we're going to finalize that. But we're going to have a lot, for sure. Certainly, it's important the high school coaching there in Georgia, the level of talent, the importance of football. It doesn't get any better than what it is over there, for sure, as you guys know. We've always had great success with guys from South Carolina. I mean, I remember when I first went to South Carolina, we had Jared Cook from there at North Gwinnett.
Sure.
Obviously, everyone knows Connor Shaw. I mean, you can go on and on and on. We could be on all night talking about the great players from Georgia that have played at South Carolina. And we're always going to start at home in South Carolina. When we had this thing rolling when I was there before, we did it with guys from South Carolina like Alshon Jeffrey, DJ Swearinger, and Javion Clowney, and Stephon Gilmore. But just the size of the state, it's not realistic to think that you're going to be able to sign 20, 25 guys a year from South Carolina. You're going to have to go outside the state of South Carolina. And we're fortunate that we've got Charlotte, North Carolina, in a growing area, a growing state and city, 90 minutes up the road. You've got Virginia, D.C., which is an area we're going to continue to hit, Georgia, Florida, all that. But the fact that you've got the city of Atlanta and the state of Georgia 3 hours away from our campus, right down I-20 or however which way you go, whether it's 85 to 26, I don't know, but depending on where you're coming from. But that'll always be a big area for us and will be a continued point of emphasis for sure. Like I said, we want to start at home, but we've got to be able to attack the state. And I learned that from Kirby. I mean, there's so many great players in the state of Georgia. But as you guys know, Georgia can't take all of them.
Correct.
And, that's one thing Kirby used to always talk about. And I thought he did a phenomenal job. And one thing I learned is he's constantly evaluating prospects. Like so many guys, they get offered as a sophomore or junior, and then the coaching staff may never watch their video again. Well, Kirby Smart, every Friday morning throughout the season, he's watching high school video of seniors. Because he used to always say, the guys that don't end up coming to Georgia, you're going to be playing against them at South Carolina, at Auburn, at Tennessee, at Florida, and realizing that there are so many great players, and we're excited to throw our hat in the ring and get over there and battle the rest of the schools across the country recruiting Georgia.
Coach, I obviously work for 24/7. So the guys over at the Big Spur do a tremendous job. I read their board, and when I go through there, it's all talk about your staff. I know I'm not going to put you on the spot, but how close are you to getting this thing narrowed down to some guys you really feel like you really need for be key additions to this first staff?
I think really close. Like I said, that first day in Columbia, I sat down with every single coach that was on the South Carolina staff and talked to them, kind of told them what I was thinking. And there's some great coaches that Will Muschamp had on that staff that I'm certainly would like to keep in Columbia. And so I'm excited about that going forward. And then, when I interviewed for this job a few weeks ago, and I met with Ray Tanner and the leadership at South Carolina, we talked about the potential coaching staff and the resources to put together a premier staff that they assured me I would have. And we talked about, this is who I'd like to talk to first at this position. If we don't get this guy, I want to go to this guy. And then if we don't get to this guy, it was essentially 3 deep of names. And every single person that was like on my quote-unquote A group, if you want to call it that, is still very much alive. I think you guys may have been talking about it before I came on, but just the timing of this year is just so different from other years. Normally when Kirby Smart gets hired at Georgia, I mean, the only thing left is the bowl games. The regular season and the championship games are over. Well, some of these guys that I wanted to hire, they coached last Saturday. Some of these guys that I want to hire, they're dealing with a signing day today. All of them are. A lot of these guys I'm interested in hiring, they may be coaching in games this week. Some of them are coaching in bowl games next week. So the timing is tough, but I would imagine that's going to ratchet up here pretty quickly, a little bit more than it has been. I've been having conversations, but to be honest with you, I haven't dove in too much. I mean, I know who I want to talk to. I've expressed that to them. I've had some conversations, but I've been so focused on getting to today and the class of 2022 and beyond, really focusing on that. And that's what every head coach that I've talked to. I talked to Kirby 3 or 4 days ago, and every other head coach that I've talked to, they've all told me, take your time on your staff. I told Kirby, like, he got hired first week of December or whatever it was, and I think it was like 3.5 weeks before I got hired. And I said, that's 3.5 weeks. I was mad at him. And I told him today, I said, I get it. I totally get why it took so long, because you got to make sure all the pieces fit together. There's a lot of dynamics at play, and you want to make sure you get that right.
We're talking to Coach Shane Beamer of South Carolina here on 680 The Fans National Signing Day Special, presented by Duffy Realty of Atlanta, AquaGuard Foundation Solutions, Georgia Power, Fox 5 Atlanta, Academy Sports and Outdoors.
Coach, Cody Chafin's from Fox 5 here in Atlanta. We talked so much about recruiting on this signing day. How much, as you come in, do you have to recruit your own roster there at South Carolina, and how does that go with you being in Norman right now?
Yeah, that's the other thing is that's certainly what I'm doing. So I've tried to reach out. I met with the team in person my first day in Columbia. And then I've called, I would say 85-90% of the team I've called and had conversations with, and I'm continuing to reach out to the rest of the guys that I haven't been able to get in touch with yet. Excuse me, just to visit and introduce myself, because certainly it's a different time with the transfer portal and things like that. So it's just getting on the phone with those guys and making sure they hear from me and answer any questions they have. And it's certainly a different challenge. And it's actually been better than I thought being in Norman. It was important for me to finish out the season here with these guys. Last week, most of the South Carolina players were not in Columbia because they were either finishing up exams or taking exams, and a lot of them went home. They didn't come back to Columbia until Sunday, this past Sunday, if they did leave. So they weren't really around, and I've been able to get so much done for South Carolina being out here in Oklahoma. Once we practice in the mornings out here, so once we finish practice and once we meet as an offensive staff with Lincoln and get everything wrapped up, I can go in my office and I can shut the door and no one bothers me, and all I can do is just make phone calls and work for South Carolina. So I've been able to get a lot of work done, and certainly that is talking to the current players on the team and beginning to build relationships with those guys. And I knew a lot of them already through recruiting that we tried to recruit either when I was at Georgia or we're trying to recruit out here at Oklahoma, but really enjoying getting to reconnecting with those guys and getting to know these other guys as well.
Coach Beamer, I want to thank you so much for joining us tonight, and we all three want to wish you the best of luck at South Carolina. I'm sure we'll see quite a bit of you over the years now as you come to Georgia recruiting and playing the Georgia Bulldogs, right?
No, I appreciate it. Yeah, looking forward to it, and will always be a big area for us, and looking forward to getting over there and battling everyone. Obviously, a great program there at Georgia Tech, and Coach Collins there in the city, and we know what's down the road in Athens, so it's a battle, but we're looking forward to getting over there and competing and getting more guys from the state of Georgia over to Columbia.
All right, thanks a lot. That's Coach Shane Beamer. Thank you. South Carolina joining us here on 680 The Fans National Signing Day Special. We are on WFOM. We are on YouTube now. We're on 680 The Fan and 93.7. Stay with us through the break. We'll be right back with Coach Jeff Collins of Georgia Tech. All right, everyone, we were in the hot 8 o'clock hour here on our 680 The Fan National Signing Day special. It's on, of course, 680, 93.7, WFOM Extra 103, and tonight's very specially streaming on YouTube. I'm Doug Conkle, along with Rusty Mansell, 24/7 Sports, Cody Chaffins of Fox 5 Atlanta. And we are very pleased and honored to be joined by Coach Jeff Collins of Georgia Tech. Coach, thank you so much for joining us tonight. I know you've had quite a busy day, hopefully a day that makes you very happy, but thank you for joining us tonight.
Yeah, appreciate you guys having me on. It's actually a great signing day. Proud of our staff, our recruiting staff, doing such great work. It's also my 25th wedding anniversary.
Oh, wow. Oh, man.
Congratulations. Mazel tov, as some people say.
I see my wife at 5:22 this morning when I left, and then I just got to the house, and she was rocking my 4.5-year-old daughter to sleep, gave them a kiss, and now I get to hang out with you guys. So
you know, the thing is, when you got married, there was no December signing day, so you had no idea this would actually be a complicated day going forward, right?
There's no doubt. One of our young assistants asked earlier, you had your wedding on signing day? I'm like, no, in the past there, buddy.
Catch up to the rest of us. Right? Yeah. Well, Coach, just give us a real quick rundown on the guys you signed today, and, you know, what do they mean for the future of the program?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm taking a year back. This is our second full recruiting class. Last year's was the highest rated class in school history, or the second highest rated class in school history. But then when they re-ranked it during the season, Jeff Sims, Jameer Gibbs, Jordan Williams, true freshmen playing for us at a high level, Jared Ivey, Kyle Kennard, they re-ranked us the 8th ranked class in the country. So really proud of the work our guys did developing last year's class. And then it's another highly ranked class. I think they've got us in the top 20 again. So just the guys that we bring into this program are committed to building something special right here in Atlanta, the capital of college football, and we're fired up to be the city of Atlanta's college football power.
Coach Rusty Mansell here, 24/7. I absolutely love this kid. I did not realize, seeing him in person, how big he was. Leo Blackburn from Westlake. I went to see those guys practice, and I remember telling the coach, I said, oh, my goodness, this guy is, and listen, he reminds me a lot of Eric Gilbert. He's not quite as big weight-wise, but athletic and long and build and ball skills. Coach, talk about him. I know you had to fight some guys off for him late.
There's no doubt. Everybody was coming after him. We did a great job developing the relationship early. Sure. He was one of the last guys, the last days before we got shut down early in March, had him sitting in my office.
Wow.
I mean, he takes up the entire room with his length, with his personality. And I think he has just played himself into being one of the top players in the country. He's right in our backyard. Very similar last year to Jameer Gibbs.
Sure.
Jameer Gibbs kind of flew under the radar early. We knew what a special talent he was. And then, got in on him early, committed to us early. And then he had a monster senior year. It's very similar to how Leo has done it. And just so proud that he stuck with us and he understands what we're building. The success of Jeff Sims that we had at quarterback this year, made those receivers really want to be a part of what we've got building. But yeah, Leo, tremendous talent. Him and Ja'Kiah Leftwich both committed to us out of Westlake, and he's another 6'6", 6'7", 320-pound offensive lineman, and so it's an exciting time. But yeah, he's a big time talent.
Two kids I've covered since they seems like 7th grade, but they transferred into your program. You're talking about Kenyatta Watson and Kevin Harris, two young men out of the Grayson program that were absolutely, you look at an edge rusher in Kevin Harris, and Kenyatta Watson had one of the best Nike Spark scores ever at a 6'2" corner. Tell me how excited you are to have those two young men playing for you, because I'm telling you right now, those guys can be difference makers pretty quick.
Yeah, there's no doubt. And they're great guys, too, getting to know them. One of my first recruiting visits that I ever took as the head coach at Georgia Tech was up to Grayson.
Sure.
Kenyatta got a great relationship with his dad. And obviously he went to Texas first. But I've said ever since I got hired here at Georgia Tech that we're going to make the city of Atlanta, Georgia Tech, a destination spot for the best talent in the country. And we're blessed that not only are they great players, highly rated, Rivals 100, and all those kind of things, but tremendous workers. They love the game. They love the process. There's not a time that I don't talk to Kenyatta or FaceTime him that he's not going to a workout in the midst of a workout or coming back from a workout or rehab session. And that just speaks volumes to how they understand, after being at the big-time program that Grayson is, they understand the process, understand taking care of their body, and preparing to be elite players in college and beyond.
One more player, because I love the game of football in the state of Georgia, high school football. This kid just popped immediately on me. Caleb Edwards, I know you had a big recruiting win to keep him in from Decula. Yeah. Talk a little bit about him and what you expect out of him playing for you.
Yeah, he does everything for that program, man. He does a great job playing wildcat quarterback, playing corner, playing nickel, playing safety, one of the top high jumpers in the great state of Georgia, and just how he plays the game. He's the son of a coach. And just when you get to know him, I will never forget the first Zoom call that I had with Caleb Edwards and his family, and his just infectious energy, how good he really wants to be, how he's willing to work for it. And that's what we preach in our program. And he wants the challenge of going to one of the top academic schools in the country, playing football at a high level, and he's one of the best players, highest rated players in the state of Georgia. And for him to choose to stay at home in the city of Atlanta, that speaks a lot for what we're building here and the kind of caliber of young men and players we're bringing in here.
Coach, I know in your first class last year, or your first true full class, getting bigger on both lines of scrimmage was a big deal to you. Were you continuing? Are you continuing to be able to do that here? Are you where you want to be there?
Did y'all see Zeke Biggers? Zeke Biggers is a 6'6", 320-pound defensive tackle that chose to come play for us here at Georgia Tech. So that's a priority. We signed 2 defensive ends last year. Kyle Kennard, Jared Ivey, both 6'6" defensive ends. Played a ton for us as true freshmen. And then Noah Collins, Josh Robinson, Keon White, Kevin Harris, length and range and speed coming off that edge. I've been able to be blessed to coach some elite defenses in college football throughout my career, and you build that up front, and the size, the length, the speed, the athleticism that we've been able to acquire on both sides of the line is huge. We will have 5 offensive or defensive linemen here in about 3 weeks. That'll be new guys, 13 guys total at the mid-year. And those are going to be huge to add to what we've already been able to develop, this being our second full recruiting cycle.
You got so many guys, young guys, able to get on the field, whether they had to this year just for other reasons or not. But what kind of a selling point is that to show guys, we're going to get you out of high school and you're going to be on the field pretty soon?
Yeah, we played Notre Dame, which at the time was the 3rd-ranked team in the country. I think we played 16-18 true freshmen in a game that we were in well into the 4th quarter. And just to see those young guys out there competing and balling against a program that's been built and developed over a 12-year period, a tremendous amount of respect for what they do. But those young guys that we had out there battling and fighting, and even down the stretch, even more and more were having to play for whatever reason, and didn't look for excuses, just went out there and played and contributed and got better. And it just bodes well for what we're building here in the city of Atlanta.
Speaking of your personnel issues, the big disappointment at the game with Miami not going to happen this week. How much is it for your staff and your players, maybe a sigh of relief to say we're finally done with this crazy COVID season?
Yeah, it's been, but I've been so proud of this group. I mean, there's been things that happened here that have never happened in the history of college football. We went 4 weeks, middle of the season, where we did not play a game. The guys stayed engaged. They kept bonding. They kept coming out. 3 tests a week, practice every day. We threw in some kickball tournaments. We threw in some dodgeball tournaments to break up the monotony. And then after that 28-day hiatus, they had us play 3 games in 13 days. And there were only 2 games that we truly had a full roster. That was the Louisville game. That was the Duke game. Our guys balled out. And just regardless of what the situation, what we were going through, the guys stayed engaged. They kept getting better. And whoever was out there on the field competed and played as hard as they possibly could for the culture, for each other. And just really proud of what we've been able to build and continue to build. There's momentum, and there's a culture that's been set that's going to propel us to huge things moving forward in this program.
Coach, you seem to be very much forward thinking on the new world of the transfer market that's going to be available this coming season. And we were talking earlier about, the different types of guys who will transfer. Some are going up, some are going down. You've got 4 guys coming from Power 5 programs to your Power 5 program. The guy that kind of intrigues me, though, is Keon White, who's coming from Old Dominion. He was a force on the G5 level. I think he had 19 and a half tackles for a loss or something last year. Tell me a bit about Keon.
Yeah, and he was a former tight end, transitioned to defensive end for them, played at a ridiculously high level, his last year playing. And the 2 games that really stood out to us were 2 games versus teams in our league, in our division, and he just balled out of control. And I think on the season he had 19 and a half tackles for loss. In those 2 games, I think he had 6 tackles for loss, 4.5 sacks. And so he's competed at a high level and even in our conference. And so for him choosing to come here is really, really huge for us, and excited about him.
Well, and speaking of the transfer market, it's kind of a whole new element in recruiting. You've already got, I guess, with the transfers and your signees, you've got about 21 scholarships spoken for, I suppose, somewhere in that neighborhood. So with those few remaining, are you looking to sign more freshmen in February, or are you going to keep those back for transfer possibilities?
No, so there's obviously some things I can't talk about specifically.
Sure. I don't want names.
that we're still in the hunt for and still talking to for January, and then also throughout the next signing period, because I think about 80% of all FBS guys will probably sign in this early signing period. Then there'll be another 20% how they fit into our program. And then I think there's going to be another wave as spring ball progresses and those kind of things. So the biggest thing, we've learned this throughout COVID, is you have to be fluid, you have to be adaptable, you have to be open-minded. And so we would just continue to develop through that as well. It's funny, Kenyatta Watson just texted me as we're on here. So that's pretty cool.
Is he listening or watching to the show, though? I don't know if we have any.
I'm sure he is. I'm sure he is. He hits me up a lot.
He's probably getting a lift in or getting a run in or something.
Yes. Yep.
Could be something along those lines. Well, real quick, Coach, we were kind of batting it around earlier on if the transfer element now is going to maybe give February a little bit more meaning, as maybe more schools are going to hold back in December now to see what breaks in the transfer market early, and then maybe sign a few guys that might have been signed in December in years past.
Yeah, I mean, it's a fluid exercise. Everybody's learning how to manage this the best way, and just what we've got to do, what's right for our program, what's right for our kids. And we are, even though we're getting some higher rated guys, we're still a developmental program, and we want guys that come in here with the right mindset. We are not solely just collecting talent. We're going to get some really good players, but we are going to develop them. We are building a program here that we expect to have big things happen through that. So we've got to get the right guys, deep dive into their developmental characteristics, their work ethic, their mindset, their character. All of those things factor in to guys that we choose to bring into this program. It's worked out. We've got some high performers that are doing it very early, and just excited to keep developing them and then add other guys to the program.
All right, Coach, we better not keep you any longer. You got to get over to Publix.
Let that man take care of his
He's got to go to Publix to get a dozen roses. He's got to pick up whatever they got for sale in the candy aisle and take that home. So, Coach, happy anniversary to you and your wife, 25 years. I'm sure it's been nothing but marital bliss for at least 22.
No doubt. There's no doubt. It's been awesome.
All right, Coach, thanks so much. That's Coach Jeff Collins from Georgia Tech.
Thank you, Coach.
Joining us tonight here on 680 The Fans National Signing Day Special, presented by Duffy Realty of Atlanta, OpcaGuard Foundation Solutions, Georgia Power, Fox 5 Atlanta, Academy Sports and Outdoors. And guys, Coach Collins, he's the right guy, I think, don't you believe, to come in and do the transition of the Paul Johnson style, which was going to entail an entire roster and culture remake to make it effective. You need a guy like that who's magnetic, who can bring in the players.
I said it about Sam Pittman. I said it about Shane Beamer. Say the same thing about Jeff Collins. They wanted that job. They wanted that job. It doesn't matter who the first choice was. Sam Pittman, to tell you, he was probably fifth in line. He was the right hire. Shane Beamer, right hire for South Carolina. Jeff Collins, the right hire for what they needed to do, because they had to totally retool, rebrand everything at Georgia Tech, because they had guys there that had never pass blocked.
Right.
I mean, we're talking Power 5 football guys that had never pass blocked. And so when you start talking about that, and I remember, everybody remembers them going into shotgun. What a great idea they did on the first play, and the fans cheered, man.
They threw a pass to the tight end. It was the first time a tight end caught a pass in 5 years. I was in the spring game, and a standing ovation from the crowd at the spring game.
And this is a year that they're still, like he said, they're still doing things to retool that and that roster. Now they've taken some guys that can help them. This is a big year for Georgia Tech to take that next step. They got a quarterback coming back who's a sophomore. They're adding some guys. I'm telling you right now, guys, Leo Blackburn is way underrated. Apologize. It should be a lot higher. And if I have anything to say when we do the final rankings, this guy has played his way. This senior year he's had, but I'm telling you right now, if he walked in, he's as big as Cam Newton. He's a 6'5", 220 guy, athlete, former quarterback that turned over to one of these hybrid tight ends. He is a problem. I know for a fact a lot of schools were trying to flip him. It's a good thing his mama wanted him close because he's going to be playing for the Jackets.
I think back to we had a highlight on High Five Sports this year. They threw a little short out to him, and he hurdles a guy. I'm like, that guy's a tight end?
Yeah, I'm telling you.
I mean, he jumps just straight over
when
a guy.
you see him in person, I was like, wow. I remember sending some videos to our guys, Barton Simmons and Charles Powell, and those guys like, hey, because I was there like in June when they first started coming out, and they were working out like 10 at a time. Well, he comes out with Dakari Collins, who, by the way, is the 6'3" guy going to Clemson, wide receiver, and you see Dakari, and you're like, who's that big guy walking beside him? And they're like, oh, that's our tight end. I was like, whoa,
Is this another symptom of the pandemic, though? Because a kid like that would have been at summer camps.
Well, I'll tell you this.
He'd have been measured. He'd have been timed.
His mom did not want him to go far. Mm-hmm. So Georgia Tech did a great job. I'm telling you, man, there was some quote-unquote heavy hitters on the national scene that came in and tried to get on him, and he stayed strong.
Well, I'm not saying that for Georgia Tech. I'm saying in terms of just his star rating from the national evaluation.
1,000%.
Yeah.
Had everybody seen him, this guy would have been a top 247 player. And he may wind up because he's had a great senior year. Mm-hmm. And once we're able to dig into those highlights and what he did, because I'm telling you, I mean, that Westlake Lee County this week is going to be, what if Westlake, just say Westlake wins.
That's what I'm saying.
If you got Westlake and Buford next week,
yeah.
You're talking about some athletes? Wow.
It's going to be fun. I think Georgia Tech, too, Coach Collins talked about it, made themselves a destination. For all those guys, they missed the first time around because you looked at Marquez Ezra came back.
Yep.
Because he didn't see Georgia Tech as a landing spot when he was coming out of Stockbridge. But all of a sudden, it's attractive to guys, and they can come home, play there, and it's cool. It's cool to play at Georgia Tech now.
Yeah.
What I think, one thing he touched on, and you talked about it earlier too, is the difference in programs at different levels is the size and the quality of your big athletes, mostly like your defensive line. They've gotten so much bigger. I mean, just this one class alone is adding so much size to that defensive line, and they're getting more athletic too.
And they got some tough kids. Look, Jaquan Griffin and Jemias Griffin and those guys, I mean, those kids I know what kind of kids they are. They are tough, hard-nosed kids. And they're going into South Georgia, getting some of those guys. They're going to some of these programs that are like these Grayson kids. They're going to know how to compete. They've already been at high level, different places. So they're doing the right thing there. It's a big year, I think, for them to move forward and see what they do with an experienced quarterback. But we'll talk to Kirby Smart here shortly about that. I want to talk about JT Daniels and some of the things. But very interested before we talk to Coach Smart is roster management.
Oh, boy.
What decisions did he make to save some spots? Because I know Georgia could have signed the class today, no question, and filled it up. At what point do they say, "Hey, we got to save X amount"?
And that's the question going forward. But for this year in particular, where all your seniors have an extra year and they could come back, now you're allowed to cross over that 85 limit for the year, so that's not a problem. But I don't think people understand in general that those scholarships count against your budget. That's money you are spending. Everyone who's on that campus.
And I want to be clear, it's approved. They can, when they come to your school, they can play now. They don't have to sit out. There's none of that. If somebody comes to your school, they're eligible. This one-time waiver, they're fully eligible.
Right.
So there's going to be a lot of kids that are like, am I going to go battle in the spring here, or I'm going to go get this job here?
Right.
So the May part of this is what's going to be interesting because everybody gets done with school in May. You got to be somewhere in June. So it's going to be wild. It's almost be like the ticker's going off. Here's the decision day for all these kids.
I don't know about you guys. I'm scrolling through my Twitter today because I'm practically a teenager at 53. And, because I'm looking at all this letter's in, that letter's in, but between every one of those, it was this kid's hitting the portal today and that kid's hitting the portal today. There must have been, no kidding, that I saw 30 or 40 kids hitting the transfer portal today. Like, it is now the time because it's the end of the year now for a lot of programs.
Finals are done.
Finals are done. I mean, boom, it is exploding out there right now.
And it's going to be interesting, too, how many more, when we see senior, Georgia Tech's had a couple guys that are said they're going to stay. How does that change the depth chart? Who decides, all right, well, now I'm not going to play next year.
Right.
Now I am going to have to compete with a guy who's in his 6th season playing college football. It's going to shake out. It's going to have ripple effects down the way.
I mean, you could have 90, 95 guys on scholarship at a program for this coming year, and there's going to be some schools like that. That's a lot of competition. Speaking of competition, we're going to talk to a guy who's used to facing some. That's Kirby Smart. That's coming up right after the break, so keep it right here, everybody. Coach Kirby Smart coming up. He's going to take us till the end of the show at the 9 o'clock hour. You're listening to 680 The Fans National Signing Day Special on WFOM and Extra 103. About done, right?
He trust me.
Tell us some stories,
The text he got, the text he sent me, he's about done.
I'll bring you on for that if you want. Welcome back. 680 The Fans National Signing Day Special. I'm Doug Conkle. I'm very unimportant. Who is important is Rusty Mansell, 24/7 Sports. Cody Chaffins of Fox 5 Atlanta. We are brought to you tonight by Duffy Realty of Atlanta, AquaGuard Foundation Solutions, Georgia Power, Fox 5 Atlanta, and Academy Sports and Outdoors. We're about to be joined by Coach Kirby Smart of the Georgia Bulldogs, and we wanted to let you know that this Kirby Smart segment is brought to you by Georgia Pack and Load. Move the smart way. I mean, I think
what you did there.
Whatever ancestor Kirby has that named the family Smart knew he had future marketing opportunities with that name and made that happen. That had to be exactly what the plan was.
I tell you what, they did something here at the radio station. We should talk about the Twin Lakes fundraiser yesterday.
Sure.
Kirby came on and talked about his brother and going there. And I had not heard the entire story. I heard it yesterday, but what a great situation and a fundraiser that the station did yesterday for 680 The Fan for Camp Twin Lakes, and what a great place that is. And certainly you could tell in Kirby's voice growing up, going there with his brother and going through that when he was a 9th grader, his brother had leukemia and went through that. So all is well in his family now. Carl is well. And
that's good.
But a great thing done by 680 The Fan, raising a ton of money yesterday.
We do that every year. I think sometimes even twice a year. And you would think during the pandemic it would be hard to get the same results. But people
awesome.
out in Atlanta, they stepped up and really made it worthwhile.
Really good stuff.
And a really effective thing that we can still keep supporting that very worthy organization. And speaking of worthy organizations, a lot of people think the Georgia Bulldogs are. Coach Kirby Smart of the Georgia Bulldogs joining us right now on 680 The Fans National Signing Day Special. Coach, welcome to the show, and thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Absolutely, man. I appreciate you guys having me.
Coach, you signed 20 players today. Before we dig into some of those, we've asked Coach Norvell from Florida State. We've asked Coach Beamer from South Carolina. By the way, he said you gave him a ton of good advice the last couple of days, so He must have some good blackmail on you. The new word in college football is roster management. These transfers and those types of things, as the transfer portal, this one-time transfer rule. How much did you and as a staff make decisions that, hey, we got to save this spot or maybe save some numbers? How did you guys go into the day and consider the transfer potential down the road?
Well, first thing to that, a bird in the hand is worth 10 in the bush. So if you give me an opportunity to sign a really good high school player, I'm going to sign a really good high school player probably every time I can, just because we think our program can develop them. We think we can grow them. We think we've got them for 4, 3, sometimes 5 years. So I would always rather take that route. But the way things are changing and the way things are opening up, you're always going to have kids that want to come back to Georgia, because our high school programs put out so many good players, and kids choose to leave the state, and then they realize mom and dad got to drive a long way, and sometimes they want to come back closer to home. So sometimes you don't have the flexibility to do that. Sometimes you can push them forward to the next year, and that's one of the things that we consider this year probably more than others, and it's something you always think about.
2 kids that I've covered for a long time, and I know you're very excited you signed today. Talk about people that have not seen him. Tell me, when Amarius Mims walks into a room, what kind of a large, athletic young man that is about to be on your roster?
Well, I mean, first thing you said is large. The number one thing we cannot develop is size. I mean, sometimes you're blessed with it, sometimes you're not. And they don't have weight classes in football, so when they don't have weight classes, the bigger man tends to win the battle. And we've been very fortunate to have some really good tackles. We think he falls in line with some of those guys we had picked last year. He's got a smile on his face all the time. And I know the college game will be a transition for him, but God's also gifted him with a lot of talents to help with that.
Brock Vandegrift, a guy that's right down the street from you. You talked about him in your press conference today. You've known this kid. You recruited him really hard. You know his family. He did a tremendous job recruiting this class. I know Georgia fans, I've told, they better shake his hand when they see him, because this young man did a lot of work to help bring some guys in this class. Tell me about Brock Vandegrift and what you're looking forward to coaching him on the next level.
Well, Brock's talented. His arm talent's grown. I can remember when I first got here and would see him throw. It didn't have the same zip that it did the last 2 years. And he's thrown it all over the field. He's still throwing it all over the field with 2 games left to have a state championship. And just such a great leader and such a good kid. I mean, this kid's worked a job, held down a job, goes hunting at 5:30 in the morning when most kids are sleeping in. And he just continues to.
Vandegrift called his own number. They scored. Wolverines break on top, 7.
Program.
Hey, Coach, tell me real quick. Rusty brought him up earlier, Dylan Fairchild out of West Forsyth, which I think is their first Power 5 player they've had come out of that program. What's it like for a high school program to have a player like a Dylan Fairchild and for a Georgia to come and get a guy like that?
Well, it's great recognition for the school. I mean, that's what we want to do as coaches, is promote the high schools in our state, because, the next kid that might be Dylan Fairchild of that program is probably in the 6th, 7th, 8th grade, and we want him to see Dylan and want to be able to follow in those footsteps. So any chance we get to promote high school football in our state, we're going to always do that. And Dylan's just a really talented young man, and he's gotten to be buddies with Brock Bowers and Chaz, and he and all those guys have really gotten to be good friends, and he's looking forward to joining with them and being a UGA student and enjoying all the things that Georgia has to offer.
Coach, we talked about Amarius Mims. We talked about Fairchild. You also have Michael Morris. Talk about this offensive line group that you put together. Coach Pittman is gone, but you're still recruiting big-time offensive linemen.
Got to. I mean, that's where it starts in the SEC. If you can't win up front, you got no chance. Third down's one of the biggest downs we have. You got to be able to pass protect. Not getting in third long starts to being able to run the ball. You got to be able to run the ball, and you got to be able to stop the run. If you can't do those things, you really have no chance. So, the best teams in our conference have the best line of scrimmages, and that's where it starts for us.
Coach, obviously some disappointment. I know you're disappointed in not being able to play this weekend. Did everything you could to play. Just things didn't work out for these seniors. You had a signing class today. I think if what I was told is true, y'all went 21 weeks in pads, and I know this team has been through a lot just to get to this point. Give me your next couple of days. What's your schedule like, and what's your kids going to be doing now they're not playing this weekend?
Yeah, we the Mondays and Thursdays this year, because of the length of the season, we really cut back. We quit going in pads on Mondays unless we didn't have a game. I think the last time we canceled on Vandy, maybe we didn't go on that Monday. Maybe we did go Monday in pads because we didn't have a game in that weekend. I think that was the Missouri week. But all the rest of the Mondays toward the end of the season, we didn't go pads. Thursday we didn't go pads, but we did go Tuesday, Wednesdays. This week, because of the unknown and not knowing, we were scheduled to go Monday light. We did go Monday light, not knowing if we had a game. And then Tuesday, we went and just kind of did a walkthrough. Today, we didn't do anything with the game not happening. And then we move tomorrow to probably another walkthrough. We're going to give them Friday, Saturday. Sunday, they do have to COVID test, and that's the most important thing is keeping our testing up to date. So we'll test tomorrow morning. We'll test Sunday. And then we'll get a couple of bowl practices in before we break.
One of my favorite recruits of all time, and I know it's a kid you probably think highly of, a highly energetic young man, Richard LeCount, senior in your program out of Liberty County High School. Tell me, Richard LeCount, when he's gone and you move on, he moves on. What's your thoughts on him, and how much has he meant to your program?
I love Richard. He's a joy and a pain. I mean, he's had so many days that he and I have gone at it early in his career. He knows I pushed him really hard and tried to motivate him to be great and reach his full potential. And he's grown up so much. I mean, went from having to go head-to-head with him, 2 days a week to one time a month to this year he's out there going head-to-head with other players and trying to lead. And such an unfortunate accident to have happen. And, it's been tough for him because he's not completely back yet. He's out there trying to practice, and he's pushing through. And he's got to understand that you got to take 2 steps back and take 2 steps forward. And he's really trying to do that. And we really thought this weekend he might have a chance to play a limited role, maybe a third down role or passing role, and then he didn't get that opportunity. So I know it's tough on him, but we'll miss Richard's confidence and his enthusiasm at practice.
Coach, mentioning a senior like Richard LeCount kind of brings to mind the whole roster management thing Rusty brought up to begin with. Your seniors can technically come back for an additional year now. It's been awarded back by the NCAA. In the past, you have never been afraid to play true freshmen who could come in and win the jobs. But do you think this coming year, with maybe a few seniors kind of sticking around, it's going to be harder for freshmen to get on the field?
No, I wouldn't say that. I would say with the influx, with the increase in the number of juniors who are going out and the increase in transfers because of the one-time transfer rule, this senior stay-in will just kind of mitigate some of that. You're going to have more freshmen playing, in my opinion, because the transfer is happening more freely. So your numbers are dwindling. Plus, juniors are going out at a higher rate, so you're forced to play freshmen even more. The senior stay-in should be able to help a little bit, but most of the seniors that are contributors, that are major starters, they're going to go and take their try at the NFL. You're not going to see a lot of these seniors sticking around.
Coach, it's a question that folks have been asking the Georgia coach since Herschel Walker was getting recruited down at Walker County. When you get a guy who's playing small classification football like a Brock Vandegrift, does it take him a little longer to be able to play on the SEC level? Does that make a difference?
I don't know that at quarterback it makes a huge difference. I would say on the offensive and defensive lines, the lower classifications would be a bigger difference because there's not as much depth and size at the lower classifications. But at the quarterback, I don't think so. I think they play so much 7-on-7. He's gone to tournaments and passed against big time players. He's gone to quarterback schools, and at the quarterback position, it's more about timing, understanding defenses, making checks. That's where you're going to make your biggest jumps. It's not going to be just the speed of the game, because speed of the game is going to be faster regardless. But he's seen in the 7-on-7 tournaments a lot of the same caliber of players.
Coach, we're approaching 2021, thank God. So 2020 is almost behind us now. Yes, indeed. So, but we're looking at a dead period in recruiting coming up. We're probably still going to be, at least for the first few months of the year, under some sort of COVID protocols. What do you envision is going to be your future now through the rest of the winter and into the spring until we're finally back to a more normal kind of a situation?
Well, I mean, I think it's going to be very similar to last year. It's communication. We probably got over 60, 22 kids on FaceTime today, and communicated with them through their high school coaches, through them reaching out to us, jumping on the phone with them, letting them know they're a priority now, fighting for. You're gonna see the greatest war ever on earth for who gets that first visit. April 15th.
Oh my goodness!
It'll be legendary. There'll be folks having
Midnight Madness.
World War III. Yeah, because it's going to be like opening of the gates, and everybody's jockeying for that first impression.
Well, Coach, will you have? Do you think you're going to have regular spring practice? Obviously, last year that was the big effect. As rolling along in March, suddenly everyone's spring practices got cut. But now that you've been through a fall and you were able to get practices in and actually play games, I would imagine that spring practice is now back on the table, wouldn't you?
Yeah, we foresee it being. I mean, unless the SEC comes in and throws a rule at us, or maybe COVID number spikes in certain communities, they're certainly making a level playing field. But we certainly expect it to be back to normal spring practice.
All right. Well, Coach, we want to thank you so much for joining us. We know you've had a long day at the end of a very long season, and we can't tell you how much we thank you for joining us tonight.
Well, I got a little 8-year-old sitting here named Boogie that his name's Andrew, and he loves listening to you guys. So it's his bedtime, and I'm telling him he's got to go to bed, and he loves listening to you guys. Want to say anything to him, Andrew?
Hi.
Hey, let me tell you something. I've seen some video on him, and he'll probably have a profile sooner than later. I can tell you that.
We talked about Camp Twin Lakes, and we didn't get to go there and see him play a little dodgeball this summer and miss that.
Yep.
Yeah, he's all about it. He wants to get a rating. He keeps telling me he wants to be a punt returner. So I told him those guys get hit way too hard.
Well, Andrew, you go to sleep like your daddy says. He'll make you chocolate chip pancakes tomorrow morning. Tell him I promised it, okay?
Appreciate it, Coach.
Thank you, guys.
All right, thanks a lot. That's Coach Kirby Smart of the Georgia Bulldogs joining us here on 680 The Fans National Signing Day Special. That, of course, was brought to you by Georgia Pack and Load. Move the smart way.
I'm telling you now, he's not kidding. That one's got. You don't want to brag too much on Kirby, but Kirby, pretty athletic dude, and
he was.
But that young one now,
athletic
Andrew,
mom too,
an athletic mom, state basketball player of the year. Mary Beth was some genes in that family, some smart kids, some athletic kids, and I'll tell you this now, Andrew can go for early age, but I got to hold off on the profiles as long as I can there.
Yeah, you don't expose him too much too soon, but also being a Kirby Smart child, he's probably going to be pretty tough too, like run through the wall if he has to run through the wall.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that those kids live over there. He has Julie and Weston has some twins too, so they spend a lot of time around football, and that family is extremely close. Do a lot together in the off season when all this stuff's done, and I think this is the first time I've ever heard Mary Beth say, "I'm ready for that guy to go back to work." They had all that time together in the off season. So, but got a little athlete in the family, a little football player. I think he plays with David Potlick and some of that group up there. David Green, all those former Georgia players have a league up there, and it's an athletic little dude. But I'm going to hold off on that one. I don't want Dad mad at me for the ranking on that one too early.
Just makes you feel old though. David Green now has kids that age and everything. When you remember he was just a guy in college, it seems not that long ago. So we got just a few minutes left, guys. Let's stick to the Georgia Bulldogs since that's where we're kind of ending the show. So Rusty, why don't you tell me real quick your one or two guys in their class today, the guys they signed, who you think we will see on the field sooner rather than later? And I'm going to ask you the same thing, Cody. Let's see if you come up with the same answer.
Just because of position of need, I think Nyland Green has a chance to get some extremely meaningful minutes early. I mean, here's a 6'2" corner. Probably going to lose Tyson Campbell. Probably going to lose Eric Stokes. Mark Webb's gone. Richard LeCount's gone. Keely Ringo's coming off an injury. I mean, that secondary. And, by the way, they open up with Clemson next year in Charlotte.
Welcome to football, gentlemen.
We're thinking no Trevor Lawrence, no problem. No, they're just fine. Clemson.
Yeah, they're there. And so I think Nyland Green's a guy that has an opportunity to play early, really quick. Also think a guy that I didn't realize how big he was in person. I saw Tyron Ingram Dawkins, a 6'5" defensive tackle out of Gaffney, South Carolina, #1 player in the state of South Carolina, signed and committed with Georgia. I think he's got a chance to get in that defensive line and play. So I know everybody asks about Amarius Mims and all these guys. It takes a little bit of time, that offensive line, to get in there. Brock Vandegrift, obviously if JT Daniels comes back, the ideal situation is kind of play Brock some, let JT be the guy. And but I'll tell you this, Brock Vandegrift is not going there to say I'm going to redshirt. And I remember interviewing Jake Fromm, thinking, why are you going there with Jacob Easton there? In my mind, like, why are you doing this? And every time he was interviewed, he said, I'm going to compete. I'm going there to compete. My mindset is not sitting there. Brock Vandegrift is not going to Georgia to say, I'm going to give up a year. He's going to have to get beat out, and somebody's going to have to beat him out of his minutes. But JT Daniels obviously a leg up, finishing very strong. I know Georgia fans want to see him play in Sanford Stadium again this weekend. They'll probably get a chance to see my guess is they'll go to the Peach Bowl. So he'll have the whole offseason to get things going. And but I will say that the original question, I still think Nyland Green has the best opportunity early on to play out of this class.
Cody, you've seen a number of these guys play, the Georgia guys. So what do you think about that?
I saw Nyland Green play this year, and on offense, he was really good.
Any long snaps.
Really good on
crazy.
Too.
I don't see that very often.
He plays every play.
And like you said, I think the need there is much bigger. And you heard Kirby talk about the offensive linemen they're great, but it might take them a little bit longer to be ready to play on that level. My most interesting thing coming into next year is how they manage the quarterbacks in Athens, because it's been such a topic of conversation with so many big-time quarterbacks there. They still got Carson Beck there, and he finally got in the other day, but is he going to be a guy that hits the transfer portal now?
He's a 5-star kid.
He'll get his opportunity. I think you make those decisions, because what's going to happen, they'll probably all go through spring, and they'll see kind of where the lay of the land is, and they all won't stay. They're just not going to happen. So when you throw Brock Vandegrift into the mix, as soon as JT Daniel kind of took the reins, Dwan Mathis was out. That's just the way it is in this day and age. So we'll see what happens, how this quarterback room shakes out down the line.
I had a chance to see Brock Vandegrift play, and certainly he's a real talent. I think maybe the question you guys have both asked is the single A competition, kind of how will that show? Because he was a guy who was just faster than most of the kids on the field. He could throw the ball much faster than they could react to it. He had a lot of that going on for him. So there's certainly a learning curve is going to be there for him. But, kids these days, even at single A, they're coming in so prepared.
Well, he'll be there. He'll be there in January. So he'll have an entire 9 months before he ever were to take a live snap. Plus, you have a spring game, summer. He has to come in as a mid-year to have any chance to play. He's the first kid ever to graduate from Prince as a mid-year. And let me tell you something, that was about his sophomore year. His dad said, we got to make this happen. So he started taking extra classes. It's so hard to do from a private school. He's the first kid ever to graduate mid-year from Prince Avenue Christian.
Coach's kid, too, which is definitely going to help with all of that.
Yeah. Like Coach Smart just said, he's that guy. He loves the game. Mm-hmm. He loves something. I pulled up there a couple weeks ago, and I pull up, and his truck's backed in. There's a deer stand with, stuff hanging all over the place, and I was like, Brock, where are you going? He's like, man, so I get done practice, I'm in the woods. He's that guy. He just loves sports, outdoors, those things.
The one guy that I've seen that I'm interested in, just because we're talking about playmakers and guys you want to get the ball to, and we finally started seeing the offense come together like Munkin wants it to come together. Brock Bowers out of California. My big question is, guys, he's a stud and he's an athlete and he can make stuff happen, but he's coming out of California. I'm not sure if he's ready for the Georgia SEC level of football. I feel like I'm a little small-time saying
that. Might they be adding another tight end soon? Who knows?
God, don't put that on me.
All right, you know what you got to do, people. You got to pay attention to Rusty Mansell 24/7 Sports, and you'll find out what's going to happen with this mysterious, perhaps, addition to the tight end. We want to thank everybody who's been here tonight. That's Coach Mike Norvell of FSU, Coach Shane Beamer, now South Carolina, Coach Jeff Collins of Georgia Tech, Kirby Smart, of course, the coach of Georgia. He was brought to us by Georgia Pack and Load. Move the smart way, everybody. I want to also thank Brandon Joseph. Great job tonight putting this whole thing together. Caitlin B. Social. I would use Caitlin's real last name, but she got married a few weeks ago, and I don't know her new last name. So Caitlin B. Social is how she's known, and how I will thank her tonight for all her efforts of doing this as well. For Rusty Mansell of 24/7 Sports, for Cody Chaffins of Fox 5 Atlanta, I'm Doug Conkle with 680 The Fan. We appreciate you joining us tonight here on 680.